Just waiting on YouTube. I believe we are now live.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will resume the Tuesday, September 14th regular council meeting. And the first item that we have is approval of the August 24th, 2021 regular council meeting minutes. Let's see. I have got Councillor Harris. Would you like to put that motion on?
I would so move that council adopt the council meeting minutes of Tuesday, August 24th council meeting.
Thank you.
That's been circulated.
Thank you. I'll just look for a show of hands. Are there any errors or omissions? No? Okay, thank you. I will close the motion on the August 24th, 2021 minutes. Please cast your vote.
Mayor Kachar, I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, you got that?
Your Worship, I'm just waiting on Councillor Kelly and Councillor Sperling.
Actually, it didn't come up for me, so I'm voting in favor.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you. It didn't come up for myself either. Count me as in favor.
Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item that we have is the August 27th, 2021 special council meeting minutes. Councillor Sperling, would you like to put that motion on?
I certainly will. I'll make the motion to, give me a sec here, sorry. What was the date of that meeting again, Mayor Ketcher?
August 27th.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of the August 27th council meeting as been circulated.
Thank you. So I'll just look for a show of hands if there's any errors or omissions. If not, I will close the motion. Please cast your vote.
Kelly here, count me as affirmative.
Me too.
Mine is as well, Councillor Sperling.
That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we will move to delegations, and we have two ladies registered to speak tonight. So I would invite Judy Rehill and Cindy Cook to bring your live stream on, and they would like to speak to the notice of motion, item 13.1. So you will have 5 minutes to speak. And with that, I'll just have you introduce yourselves, and then I will start the clock.
Thank you. Thank you for providing Twice But Nice an opportunity to speak about our recent application for the Storefront Improvement Grant. I am Cindy Cook. I'm the Vice President of Twice But Nice, and I have with me Judy Rehill, who is the President. Sorry. Figure out to go to the next page. We are a nonprofit secondhand store located downtown, but we're also a business. Today, we have 4-time full staff members and about 10 volunteers that regularly work in our store. Every item that we sell is donated through the back door. It is the only way to ensure a smooth flow of inventory. We keep 2 to 3 tons of textiles out of the landfill every month. Since our inception, we have donated over $900,000 back to our community. We partner with the city and local nonprofits to provide emergency clothing and household items free of charge to those in need. We are a social enterprise. We earn revenue so we can achieve our mission, which, since we've been established since 1985, has never changed. We provide inexpensive clothing and household items to the community, and we use our profits towards community investments. We benefit the community with a long history that garners respect as we are business survivors. Please note, we are not eligible for the city grants nonprofits program. Hence, we've applied for the Storefront Improvements Program. Our grant application has two parts. The first is straightforward because it is the front of the business, a new sign. We have a new logo that represents who we are today. The proposed new sign will give us brand consistency. The picture on the left is how the sign looks today. It's very piecemeal and unprofessional looking. The new sign on the right would have our new logo, and it will not be pieced together. The back of this business has a higher price tag, as it is more substantial. We looked at two alternatives. Both are about the same price. One would be an awning, the other would be a wooden structure. Both would be aesthetically pleasing and provide much needed protection from the elements for our staff, our volunteers, donors, and the donated items. New signage at the back of the building is included in this ask. The picture on the left shows how the back of the store looks today, with no protection from the elements. The photo on the right gives you an idea of what a backdoor structure would look like. I've included this slide as it shows the view from the side and the front of the proposed structure. Specifically, we are looking for an amendment to the terms of the Storefront Improvement Grant. This flexibility would enable business owners to identify ways to make their business exterior more attractive to customers and the general streetscape, not just the front of the business. COVID-19 challenged business owners to be creative on how they service their customers and how they use their space. Restaurants and bars are using back doors for food pickup by food delivery companies like Skip the Dishes. The Bear's Den is a good example of that. Businesses are integrating patios, which could be at the side, the back, or even the roof of the building. In Edmonton, there are businesses where there are two distinct businesses in one shop. The front of the shop is a coffee cafe. The back of the shop is a pizza shop where there's just pickup and delivery. So mixed joint tenants could actually happen here in Fort Saskatchewan. Amending this grant can help us, but it can also help other businesses. The proposed backdoor improvements will make our store more visually welcoming for our donors. We depend on those donations to stock our store because without those donations, there would be no store. This is a well-used back alley. A rear door cover would improve the view for our neighbors that live in the 12 apartments that overlook the back alley, and it would improve the aesthetics overall of the back alley. The rear door cover would also help with navigation as it would be visible actually from 3 main streets. It will provide weather protection, and considering that we have 40 to 80 cars each donation day, it will improve the safety of our staff, volunteers, and donors. We have a very bright future. We have a board and staff that have plans to continue to improve our business. And these are just a few of the ideas that we have. We'd like to look at a sewing center, possibly in the basement, where we'd be using the donated textiles and make recycled shopping bags that we could sell. We want to expand our reach to the do-it-yourselfers. We want to connect more with the 20 and 30-year-olds that are actually, they're shifting to thrifting because thrifting is now in style. We want to connect with more of the outer town customers. We have shoppers that are coming from Edmonton, Spruce Grove, Sherwood Park. And we also want to look at some marketing partnerships with other local downtown businesses. Bottom line, we want to continue to grow our business and benefit our community. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Okay, I gave you a little bit of extra time because there was 2 of you. So, okay, so we'll go into questions first, and I'm actually first in the speaking order. So I'm just curious, as the storefront improvement policy was being brought forward to council last time, did you have any input or conversation with our economic development team who was preparing it?
No,
Were
not
you?
no, not at all. We became aware of it. I'm newer to Twice But Nice, and Judy as well. Judy just be with Twice But Nice for a year.
Yeah.
I'm about 6 months, and no, I was not involved in helping with the policy itself. We looked at the policy that was online available on the website and talked to your staff. They helped us as well.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, because we just did an update to it not too long ago, so it would have been nice to have the input at that point in time, but that's hindsight, so that's okay. Thank you. And thank you for coming online tonight. Councillor Lennox?
Thank you. And thank you, ladies, for the presentation. And I also thank you for all that you do for our community. So my question is, you said that you have about 40 to 80 cars each donation day. So would you consider the traffic that you get to the back pretty significant and almost equal, perhaps, to the traffic that you get to the front?
Well, I can tell you this much, that it is very busy on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So I don't think that we gauge the amount of cars or the amount of shoppers that we have every day. I would have to go back and crunch those numbers to say that, but that's a significant amount of traffic that we have that's going there. Those volunteers and staff are extremely busy on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and it's keeping that traffic. It's a little bit harder when it's snowing, raining, or like in July, super hot weather. So
Right.
it was a stretch. It was hard.
Right. And it's a fairly well-trafficked area anyway in behind there. Would you agree with that as well?
Absolutely. I have gone there myself to drop off items, and here's my commercial break. I hope that everybody that's here will be looking at their house when they're wanting to be purging stuff. Just keep us in mind, because we will take your treasures. But yeah, I've actually had to wait because there's like 3 or 4 cars waiting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon, questions?
No questions, but Cindy, Judy, thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do for our community.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity. We're just representing the volunteer board, and we have a lot of volunteers that dedicate their time within the store. So we're representing them and our staff. So we're very grateful you gave us this opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, questions?
No questions. I'll just echo the comments of the preceding councillors. Thank you, ladies, for your time today. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye, questions?
First of all, I'd like to say, wow, 900,000 in community donations. Wow. And obviously the environmental sustainability part of your business as well, that's obviously really significant. So thank you for all you're doing, Judy and Cindy. Thank you. And we hope you send our regards to your volunteers, because as you said, you're not the only ones, right? Send it back to your volunteers and staff and say thank you on behalf of council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris, any questions?
No questions, but thank you. Your comments were thought-provoking and obviously add to constant quality improvement in our policies and our programs. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sperling, questions?
No, I think the questions I had have been answered, but again, I'll just acknowledge Cindy and Judy for coming out today, and I appreciate what you've shared. Thank you.
Great. So thank you very much. We'll be discussing this towards the end of the meeting, so you can join YouTube if you like, and it's to give direction. So thank you very much for coming out and giving us some indication of what may be lacking in the policy. All right, so thank you. And at this point in time, I'll have you put your, bye. We'll have you put your screen down. Thank you. All right, so we will move on to the next item, which is a public hearing for Bylaw C27-21. So before I open the public hearing, just with regarding to the process, once it's opened, administration will do a presentation. Following that, council will have an opportunity to ask questions of administration. Then there will be an opportunity for anyone who is registered to speak in favor or opposed to the public hearing. And then following that, administration will have one last time to answer any questions of council. Then it will be closed and we will deal with the business arising from the public hearing. So I will open the public hearing for Bylaw C27-21 and Matthew Siddons presenting.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of Council. I'm Matthew Siddons, current planner, and I'll be presenting Bylaw C27-21. So Bylaw C27-21 is for an amendment to the Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan. TAG Developments has submitted planning applications to the city. They're looking at comprehensive designs for stages 1 and 2 of the Heartland Industrial Park. For the stage 2 development, they're proposing municipal reserve lot dedications. For the subdivision authority to approve the subdivision, the Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan needs to be amended and the zoning needs to be put in place. Bylaw C27-21 amends the Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan, and following approval of the ASP, we'll be asking Council for approval of the redistricting. Area structure plans are statutory plans that guide the future growth and development for specific areas of the city. Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan provides a framework for land use, transportation, utility services, and industrial development. It comprises a 596 hectare area of land, and the plan area is bounded by Highway 15 in the north and west, Township Road 550 to the south, and Range Road 220 to the east. On February 13, 2018, Council approved Bylaw C2-18, which redistricted land in the Heartland Industrial Park Stage 1. On July 2021, Select Engineering Consultants on behalf of TAG Development submitted planning applications for the Heartland Industrial Park Stage 2. The purpose of the amendments are to add 2 municipal reserve lots, and housekeeping amendments also proposed to the plan include updating the map figures so they reflect the outline plan designs, and updating the land use statistics to reflect the outline plan. In this slide, you see 2 concepts. On the top is the original plan from 2016, and the second concept shows the proposed amendments. The first plan shows the area as medium industrial sites. The amended plan shows the area as municipal reserve site and stormwater pond. And there's also public utility right-of-way separating the 2 municipal reserve lots. The area structure plan amendments would designate the lands in stage 2 from medium industrial to municipal reserve, and from medium industrial to stormwater management facility. So the proposed municipal reserve sites will include native tree species. So native tree species will be planted on the site, as well as there's intent to create a forested area on the municipal reserve lots. And the sites will also accommodate soil mounds that are part of the stage 1 development area. And the purpose for this area is to create a reclaimed natural area to serve as a carbon sink. So carbon sink means any type of development that produces less carbon than it produces. And this site is not intended for public recreational use, as it is adjacent nearby to heavy industrial development. The housekeeping amendments include updating the map figures so they reflect the outline plan design, adding a stormwater management facility to reflect the Stage 1 subdivision, updating the land statistics in Appendix 2 to reflect the outline plan, and the updated land statistics will reflect the revised municipal reserve calculations for the area. The proposed area structure plan updates were sent to internal city departments and external agencies for review and comments. Internal city departments are supportive of the proposed amendments, and Strathcona County has no concerns with the amendments. Following first reading of the bylaw, the public hearing was advertised in the 4th Saskatchewan Record for 2 consecutive weeks. Landowners within approximately 100 meters of the site were mailed a notice, and no comments were received. I would like to take this time to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. On the question side, Councillor Lennox, you're up first.
Thanks for the presentation, Matthew. I just kind of curious why it wasn't included. Can you provide some insight maybe why it wasn't included in the original area structure plan?
Through your worship to Councillor Lennox. So this area wasn't included as part of the original area structure plan, but within the Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan, it has policies that say that as the area develops, that the city may consider additional municipal reserve dedications being provided in the area. So following with the area structure plan, the city could take municipal reserve dedication as cash in lieu, or it could take it as actual land for municipal reserve sites.
So in what, can you provide some insight maybe into what the decision for having a storm pond, like where did that, what indicators led to that outcome?
Through your worship to Councillor Lennox, I guess the location for the stormwater pond, that came about with a review of the Stage 1 subdivision plans, because with the Stage 1 subdivision plans, it was realized that a stormwater pond was needed in this location for stormwater drainage. So that was kind of the start of the planning rationale for the location of the stormwater pond in this area.
Okay, so was there excessive water in the area, or and that would be my last question.
Through your worship to Councillor Lennox, there's not really like excess water in this area, but it was determined that this would be a good location just for like a stormwater pond to be located for adjacent parcels to drain into that area.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matthew.
Okay, thank you. Clarifying questions, Councillor Macon.
I have no questions. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Excuse me. I just want to make sure my understanding is correct. If I look at in our materials, and I think it's your figure 5, in our materials is very small. I have to squint to see it. But on that map, the triangular piece, there's 3 green areas. All 3 of those green areas are what we're talking about in this amendment. Those comprise approximately in total 3 hectares of the total property, and they will all be used for stockpiling surface or black dirt and a carbon sink.
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, are you referring to figure 5 in the area structure plan amendments?
Yes.
I think it's development concept. Okay, so within that area, so you're correct. So those 2 green lots will be municipal reserve dedication, and they're also planned to accommodate soil mounts. So from excess soil from Stage 1 developments, and then the developer will also be looking at planting trees and creating a natural area within those lots.
But I see 3 spots. One on the southwest corner, one on the south edge, and one in the northeast corner. Is that correct?
Oh, through your worship to Councillor Kelly, that is correct. So within this area structure plan, there are a number of municipal reserve lots. So the ones in the north area, there's actually like a natural tree stand that's already pre-existing. So once development kind of occurs within that area, the city will take that as municipal reserve, just preserve that natural tree stand. And then the one to the southwest that you commented on, that's one in the current application.
Okay, you confused me with reference to a natural tree stand. That is not part of this amendment here, or is it?
That is correct, Councillor Kelly. So if you can see on my mouse here, this area to the north, that's the one with like the natural tree stand. But with this application, we're just
Thank you. We're
looking at
just talking
this
about the
here.
area highlighted in green as being part of this amendment.
That's correct.
And the total area comprised is approximately 3 hectares? Approximately.
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, that's right. For the redistricting, it would be approximately that area.
Okay, and if I may, Mayor Catcher, that 3 hectares, our municipal reserve requirement, according to the development agreement, I think calls for 10% of the developable land to go to reserve and or cash in lieu. Is that also correct?
To your worship, Councillor Kelly, that's correct. So under the Municipal Government Act, a municipality is allowed to take 10% of unsubdivided lands as municipal reserve, either as municipal reserve or in cash in lieu for municipal reserve dedication.
So out of the 590 acres total development, 59 of those municipal reserve. Out of that 59, 3 allocated to this purpose, which is approximately 5% of the municipal reserve allocation.
That would be correct, Councillor Kelly. So it would be approximately about like 5% of the municipal reserve dedication for this area.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye.
No questions. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
I don't have a question about this. The redesignation makes a lot of sense, but the question that I've got is, what would you say the imminency of development in the stage 1 is relative to where the developer is sitting? Have we given any indication, ultimately, if this is going forward in lockstep in terms of making things happen in a sequential manner, will this help to facilitate development in that area in the short term as opposed to the long term?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, so currently the stage 1 subdivision is currently under development. So the developer has been working on that stage, and they phased it into 2 parts. So they're working on phase 1, but this phase 2 would also help them because it would allow them to store some of the excess soil from stage 1 into this area.
Okay. All right. It's outside of this context, but there's a road, an intersection being improved up to the kind of the middle of Appendix C or whatever it is. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, there is some road improvements that are being done with the stage 1 subdivision.
Okay, and so then this is consistent with the normal timelines for this type of development. That was really kind of all I had, so that was fine. Thank you. You answered my question.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling, any questions?
No questions. Thanks for the presentation, Matthew.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. Thank you. So I'll just look to see if there's any additional questions of anybody. If we need to do another round. Okay, so thank you very much for the presentation, Matthew. We do have registered speakers, and I'm not sure if they're going to do a presentation or they're just here to answer any questions. But registered to speak are Mike Tanischuk, Vice President of TAG, and Eric Cian, Planner for Select Engineering. So if you would like to put your screens on and join us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay, you're Eric. Okay.
Yeah, and Mark is online. He's just on his phone, so he won't be able to have video. But we are both here to answer questions. Mark is the developer on behalf of TAG, and I'm Eric with the planner with Select Engineering. So
Okay, so just for the formality of this, because it is a public hearing, I would ask you to state your name and you're in favor or opposed so that it does go on the record. And then if you don't have a presentation, I'll just ask council if they have any questions. So if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, my name is Eric Sane and I am in favor of this application.
Okay, thank you. And no presentation, just questions.
No presentation, just questions only.
Okay, so I will just go through our rotation list to see if there's any questions of yourself or Mark. And sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing his last name right. Councillor Macon, do you have any questions of either one?
I do not, but thank you for being here.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
No further questions. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
I have a general question through the planner, but I presume this is going forward because the developer sees an opportunity for development in the not too distant future. Would that be a fair assessment in terms of the conditions for development moving forward?
Yes, as stated by Matthew, stage 1 is under development, so this will help stage 1 continue on. And then once stage 1 is under completion, the developer would look at the next stage in development and how it all depends on market and economy, right? So, but as the next stages go, this would be the next this would be the next stage in development. So we're just going to keep pushing along as fast as we can, I guess.
So I presume the developer sees it in a positive context as opposed to a negative context, or he wouldn't be kind of moving in this direction?
For sure. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not going to want to put words in his mouth, but for sure, I think he's positive about everything.
Yeah, I was just looking for general consultation relative to where the economy is going and the mood of the development community in general terms. So thank you. You answered that question.
Thank you.
This is Mark from Tag Developments. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Maybe I'll just kind of piggyback off of Eric's answer, but the short answer is yes. We have seen an uptick over the past kind of 4 months in terms of activity in the region, and so we're excited about that, and we're hoping that the momentum can continue and continue building. And Fort Saskatchewan has been a more active area over the kind of mid part of 2021 than it has been over the past few years in terms of leasing some of our existing space in the Heartland centers, as well as some new businesses that are under construction and locating in the Fort Industrial Estates area. Most recently, Oculus Transport taking 4.2 acres and building a 17,000 square foot building. And so we're hoping some of that momentum continues. The Heartland Industrial Park Stage 1, we do have one 12-acre site committed to by a local user who unfortunately I'm not allowed to reveal at this point, but because there's still some conditions that need to be removed and before it all moves forward. So there is still a bit of economic risk, but subject to them giving us the green light, then we're looking to build this stage, Heartland 1, and consequently Heartland 2 next season. But again, there are still economic factors that may impact that. But at this point, that's where we're expecting to land on this.
Gentlemen, that's all good news. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling, clarifying questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no clarifying questions. Councillor Lennox?
I was just going to ask you why you're here speaking in favor, but it sounds like it's just part of an ongoing process, and this is part of the moving forward to the next phase. Would that summarize it pretty well?
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to look for a show of hands if anybody has any further clarifying questions for Eric or Mark. If not, I will thank you very much, and we will be discussing this immediately following the close of the public hearing. So you can put your screens down and you can listen, and then once we get into decision making and finish, then you can leave. So thank you very much. So at this point in time, I will invite Matthew back. Okay, Matthew, thank you. So are there any final clarifying questions of Matthew? I'm just going to look for hands. Okay, not seeing any, then I will close the public hearing at 3:36, and we will move into business arising from the public hearing. So go ahead, Matthew.
Recommendation is that council give second reading to bylaw C 27-21 as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Lennox, you're next in rotation for the motions. Would you like to make the motions?
Sure, I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw C 27-21, which amends Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan, bylaw C 9-15, to include additional municipal reserve sites and map updates.
Thank you. Would you like to speak in favor of the motion?
Oh, I don't really think I have anything more to add. It's just part of the process so development can move forward.
Okay, thank you. So it is open for discussion and debate. Councillor Macon, anything?
No comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you. I just noticed this. It escaped my attention before. A question of administration, because the motion says to include additional municipal reserve sites. If there are existing reserve sites on there, could you please describe them and the approximate area encompassed?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, there are existing municipal reserve sites within the area structure plan. So there's the ones that we were discussing before with the natural tree stand. And then there's also in the south, there's supposed to be like a future municipal reserve area to be provided as well. So in terms of municipal reserve dedications, so before these amendments, there's approximately 13.6 hectares of municipal reserve land that were going to be dedicated. So that's about 2.6% of the total area. And then with this amendment here, the municipal reserve area be somewhere closer to 20.4 hectares or 3.7% of the total area.
Or to put it another way, 37% of the municipal reserve allocation will be used up in these sites.
That's correct. Yeah, there'd be about.
That gets me. I guess I wasn't clear with my question earlier. I referred to all three of those sites on the map and asked if all three of those were part of this bylaw update. And I guess I wasn't clear because I thought I heard you say yes, they were. So now you're telling me they're not. In fact, all three of those areas comprise an area much larger than the 3 hectares we're looking at right now.
Through worship to Councillor Kelly, so this area in the southeast was the only one that's changed. The other areas, this one in the north and then the one to the south, were pre-existing from the original area structure plan.
Okay. I know that paper is expensive, but perhaps when we get these maps in the future, we could designate a whole page to them so that I don't need a magnifying glass to understand them. Thank you, Matthew, for your response. Doesn't change my opinion. I'll still vote for the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye on discussion and debate.
I support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
I support it as well. Vote in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Sperling.
I'll support the motion as well. I appreciate Matthew's presentation on this. He's pretty well informed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll support the motion as well. And it's exciting to hear that there's additional development and uptake happening in this area. It's very exciting because Atchison and Leduc Nisku Park have been doing so well. So I think it's finally our turn, and hopefully everybody will see that and then just continue to come over here and utilize the tagline. So very exciting to hear that. And if that helps us, I think it's a good move. Thank you. Councillor Lennox on close.
Nothing further, thanks.
Thank you. So the motion is now closed as presented. Please cast your vote. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Would you like to proceed with second or third reading?
I sure can. I move that council give third reading to bylaw C27-21, which amends Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan bylaw C9-15 to include additional municipal reserve sites and map updates.
Thank you. Do you have anything further on speaking in favor?
I do not, thanks.
Okay, I'm just going to look for a show of hands if anybody has anything further on discussion and debate. Not seeing anything. Anything on close? You're good?
Good on close, thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to close the motion for third reading as presented. Please cast your vote. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we will move on to public hearing for bylaw C28-21, and same process. Administration will present. We'll ask questions. There will be a chance to speak in favor or opposed. And then following that, any final questions and deal with the business arising out of the public hearing. So I will now open the public hearing for bylaw C28-21. Matthew Siddons presenting.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I'm Matthew Siddons, current planner, and I'm here to present bylaw C28-21, which is for the Heartland Industrial Park Stage 2 redistricting. So the lands are located in the southwest corner of the Heartland Industrial Park, as identified by the arrow, and the lands are directly north of Township Road 550. TAG Developments has submitted planning applications to the city. Through bylaw C27-21, council approved the Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan amendments. And bylaw C28-21 will redistrict the lands to accommodate the proposed subdivision. So this redistricting application was submitted by Select Engineering on behalf of TAG Developments, and bylaw C28-21 redistricts lands as Park and Recreation District and as Public Utility District. The approved Josephburg Road North Industrial Area Structure Plan designates this area as Municipal Reserve, as shown in green, and this higher level plan identifies general areas for industrial areas, Municipal Reserve dedications, and collector roads. If approved, the Josephburg Road North Industrial Outline Plan would designate this area as Municipal Reserve, as shown in green, and Municipal Reserve the Municipal Reserve sites will accommodate native tree plantings and serve as a forested area to act as a carbon sink. And these changes are subject to the approval of the Josephburg Road North Industrial Outline Plan. Lands to be redistricted are to be redistricted from Industrial Reserve District to Parks and Recreation District, as shown in green and dark yellow, and lands to be rezoned from Industrial Reserve District to Public Utility District are shown in light yellow, and they are all located north of Township Road 550. The proposed municipal reserve sites will be used for developer to store soil and develop a natural area. They will be planting native tree species on the site to create a forested area, and this reclaimed natural area will serve as a carbon sink. Due to the site's close proximity to heavy industrial development, the site is not intended for public recreational use, and a public utility lot will be located on the site and will serve as a drainage ditch. Following first reading of the bylaw, the public hearing was advertised in the Fort Saskatchewan Record for 2 consecutive weeks. Landowners within 100 meters of the property were mailed a notice and no comments were received. I would like to take this time to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So for clarifying questions, Councillor Kelly, you're first.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
I think, thanks.
Thank you. I'm good. Councillor Lennox?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Did I ask you, Councillor Sperling? I'm sorry. I apologize.
No
Okay.
questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macon? Okay, thank you. I apologize. Sometimes I skip over these. All right, thank you. So at this point in time, same thing. We have registered speakers, Mark Tenischuk, Vice President of TAG, and Eric Seen, Planner of Select. So you can come on. And once again, just state that you're in favor or opposed, and we will see if anybody has any questions of you. So Eric, go ahead.
Thanks. Eric Sane with Select Engineering. I am in favor of this application.
Thank you. So I'm just going to look for a show of hands from any council to see if they have any questions of you. It doesn't appear they do. So thank you very much for being online. So as soon as the public hearing is finished, we will deal with this matter as coming out of business arising from the public hearing. So thank you very much. And at this time, I'll have you put your video down. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I will invite Matthew back on the screen. Okay, so I just will ask if there's any final questions of Matthew. I'm just going to look for a show of hands. Not seeing any, then I will close the public hearing for Bylaw C-2821 and go to business arising from the public hearing and welcome Matthew back. Go ahead.
Motion is that council give second reading to Bylaw C-28-21 as presented.
Thank you. I would invite Councillor Macon. Would you like to put the motions on?
Absolutely. I'll make the motion that council gives second reading to Bylaw C-28-21 as presented.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak in favor?
No, I don't have too much to say. Otherwise, this is just part of the process and I see no concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Kelly, anything on discussion and debate?
I support the motion and nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
I'll support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sperling?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox?
I support the motion, nothing further.
Okay. Councillor Macon, anything on close?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion is now closed that council gives second reading to Bylaw C-2821 as presented. Please cast your vote. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Would you like to proceed with third?
I will. I'll make the motion that council give third reading to Bylaw C-28-21 as presented.
All right, thank you. Anything further on speaking in favor?
Nothing.
Nope. You froze up for a second, sir. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I'm just going to look for a show. Okay, I'm just going to look for a show of hands if there's anything further on discussion and debate. Not seeing any. Anything further on close? Nothing. You're good. So I will close the motion that council give third reading to Bylaw C-28-21 as presented. Please cast your vote. Okay, that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, the next item that we have is appointment of the city auditors. And I believe Clayton Northey, you're presenting. So just before you do at this point in time, so thank you, Eric and Mark. You can leave the screen now. Okay, Leo will help them exit. So go ahead, Clayton.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I'm Clayton Northey, the manager of accounting and reporting for the city. I'm here today to ask that council pass a resolution to appoint KPMG LLP to be the city's auditor for a 5-year term commencing with the 2021 annual audit and concluding with the 2025 annual audit. And that council pass a resolution to establish that only the city's auditor is qualified to conduct annual financial reviews or audits for the City of Fort Saskatchewan Library Board. With that, I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So for questions, Councillor Abitoye, do you have any questions?
No questions. I mean, it's just natural course of business.
Thank you, Councillor Harris.
I have no questions, thanks.
Councillor Sperling. I'm not sure. Oh, he is frozen at this time. I have no question. Oh, there he is. Councillor Sperling, did you have any questions? Okay.
I did not.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't. Councillor Lennox.
I have no questions. Thanks, Clayton.
Thank you. Councillor Macon.
None from me. Thank you, Clayton.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So with no questions, there is 2 recommendations with motions. I would go to you, Councillor Kelly, if you would like to put those motions on one at a time.
Yes, certainly. I move that council appoint KPMG LLP to be the city's auditor for a 5-year term commencing with the 2021 annual audit and concluding with the 2025 annual audit, and further establish that only the city auditor is qualified to conduct annual financial reviews or audits for the City of Fort Saskatchewan Library Board.
Okay, they're two separate motions. So if I'm reading that correct, Mr. Northey, it's 2 separate.
Through your worship, it could be read as one motion.
Okay. Okay, nope, just wanted to double check because it says 1 and 2. Okay, sorry, thank you. Councillor Kelly, would you like to speak in favor?
I interpreted it as one simply because of the word "and" at the end of the first sentence. I have nothing to add. KPMG is certainly a qualified accounting firm with international recognition. I'm sure they'll do a fine job, and I look forward to working for them in the next term. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since there is no questions, I'm just going to look for hands if there's anything on discussion and debate. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'll go back to Councillor Kelly on close. Anything further?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. So I will close the motion. Please cast your vote.
I'm having a hard time getting in, so I vote in favor.
Okay, thank you.
I was in, but obviously not anymore. I vote in favor as well.
Okay, that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, and thank you, Mr. Northey. So the next item that we have, okay, so we have item 11.2, property tax late payment waiver request for roll number 4624864. I guess that's Jeremy Eamon and Trish Norman presenting.
Good afternoon, Mayor Catcher and members of council. I am Trish Norman, Revenue Services Coordinator with the City of Fort Saskatchewan. I'm here this afternoon to request Council's decision regarding property tax penalty waiver request for tax roll 4624864. On July the 12th, 2021, the City of Fort Saskatchewan received an application from a property owner requesting a waiver for property tax late payment penalty in accordance with the property tax penalty waiver policy and procedures. As of July 12th, 2021, the property owner has signed up for Fort Electronic Payment Plan and has paid the necessary upfront payment for the FEP plan, including late payment penalties in the amount of $145.25. The property owner has consequently made an application for council to consider late payment penalty reimbursement under compassionate grounds. Administration is not authorized to make this decision, as only council has the authority to waive late payment penalties for property taxes. Council has two alternatives as outlined below. Number one, that council deny their request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax 4624864 on July 1st, 2021 in the amount of $145.25. Or two, that council grant the request to waive late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4624864 on July the 1st, 2021 in the amount of $145.25. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go to questions first. Councillor Harris, do you have any questions?
I do. So is it pretty clear that in terms of tax payments, taxpayers are required to ensure that their tax payments are received by the city as of June the 30th in this case? Is that a fair understanding?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, yes, that is correct.
Okay. Would you say there were any extenuating circumstances in this situation that would suggest that there was something beyond the taxpayer's control that prevented them from making the payment in accordance with our payment deadlines?
Through your worship, because it's being claimed under compassionate grounds, I feel that that would be more of a judgment call for the councillors to make, as opposed to my opinion on whether the taxpayer paid in due course or not.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for clarification if there are extenuating circumstances. Compassionate grounds is obviously a personal judgment call on the part of the taxpayer requesting on that basis. I was just curious if there was extenuating circumstances that we may not have been aware of.
Beyond what was noted in the appendix, those were the only circumstances we were made aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sperling, questions?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lennox?
I don't really have any questions. I'll save my comments for later.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon?
Questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Yes, I do have a question. Again, one that just occurred to me for administration and whomever wants to field the question. When a taxpayer fills out their request for a waiver, invariably that request includes personal information. Does administration assure the property owner with the filing of that this personal information will remain confidential? Or is that an administrative choice that you folks have made once the information is received? And I ask that because I'd like to know what my boundaries are when we get to discussing this at the next stage.
Under our FORT requirements, administration has chosen to redact any personal information from the applications that we present in the public session.
Sort of answered my question. We're giving a tax roll, so personal information could obviously be found easily. What about the reasons for the request for a waiver?
Those reasons we include in the in-camera session that is presented to council prior to the public session. So yes, those. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should let you finish. Please continue.
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Well, I know they were included in the in-camera session. That leads me to my question. To what point can I refer to those in the subsequent upcoming discussion, if any?
Mr. Fleming?
Through your worship, my understanding with FOIP is that personal information includes things like addresses and like, I mean, you could get into credit card numbers and social security numbers and things. Ms. Moulter can correct me on this. If they've applied to the city and they've offered up a reason, I would probably consider the reason to be their reason for asking would be a matter of public discourse because council has to make that decision. But again, I would caution council in using their judgment as to how deep they want to debate and argue those reasons, because they are their personal circumstances. They might not necessarily be considered personal information under FOIP, but I think we should be cautious for sure in how we debate it.
Thank you.
Your worship and members of council, maybe if I could just add, if I could just add that when people submit their applications, they are made aware that this is going to a council meeting and that it can be made public. We have taken the stance that we are trying to protect their information as much as possible. And as you know, there are many personal details oftentimes in explanations. So while they have been made aware that it could be made public, we have chosen to protect their privacy, if that helps at all.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye, questions?
Just one quick question, Trish. So when is the deadline for payment and when did this customer pay?
The deadline for payment is June 30th for all property tax accounts with the city. On July the 12th, we received the upfront payment that we required for the account holder to go on a monthly payment plan.
Okay, so 12 days after. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, that's all the questions. I'm going to go to a motion. Councillor Abatoye, which motion would you like to make for this one?
I'm going to go with alternative 2. So can I go ahead and read it?
Yes, go ahead.
I make a motion that council grants the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll as written in the package on July 1st, 2021 in the amount of $145.25.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to speak in favor?
It's really hard to really go into details of all the different cases. And I do know that council has a policy to deal with these types of things. And we've said that, you know, it's under really critical grounds that we would waive this late payment, late penalties. But the thing is that also is open to being really subjective, right? So based on what the person has written in their application, I feel like that's enough reason for me to waive this fees just based on compassionate grounds because I'm a mom too and I know what it's like. And so just based on that, I will approve this request.
Okay, so the motion is the second alternative that I just need to pause for a second. I'm sorry. My battery is running. Just give me 1 second. I just have to. Oh, there. Okay, back. Sorry about that. I thought I had plugged it in. All right, so the motion is that council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties. So that is the one that we will be discussing and debating. Councillor Harris, you're first up.
Now, I can appreciate circumstances beyond people's control, but I think that it has to be a pretty significant issue to grant a waiver. In a former life, I ran the tax department for the Strathcona County for about 5 years, and dealt with many tax penalty waivers. And to my recollection, I don't recall one ever being granted. And in that period of time, the July 1st tax penalty was 18%. Ours is substantially lower and it's staggered. And I think that in itself is an approach to suggest you are responsible as a taxpayer to pay your taxes by June the 30th. If in the off chance that you miss that payment deadline, you can offset any further penalties by paying it within the time. And so I think staggering the tax penalty has been one way to try to get around that. But it still makes the responsibility for the property owner to pay the taxes on time and to ensure that they get there in time. And it would have to be very extenuating, in my opinion, for it to be granted. So I can't, on that basis, agree to this waiver.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling?
Actually, my comment's very similar to Councillor Harris's. I don't support waiver of the late payment penalties on this file as per the circumstances indicated. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to be supporting the motion, although I agree with what Councillor Harris and Councillor Sperling have said. My interpretation of the compassionate grounds and the reasons would satisfy that I do believe this one would fall under that when I was reading all of them. So I actually will be supporting this one. Thank you. Councillor Lennox?
Just wondering if you can give the date of when an inquiry was made by the owner about the mailing out of the tax notice. Do you have that on record at all of when they made the inquiry?
Through your worship to Councillor Lennox, I do not have the date. It may have been a phone call that they made to our tax department, but we don't have that documented on what date they actually made their inquiry to us.
So I guess regardless of when the date was then, whether it was before June 30th or not, they did take steps to try and figure out what the issues were.
Through your worship, that is correct.
Okay. I think then that I will, under those circumstances, I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macon?
Thank you. I'm going to support the motion. I do believe that there are situations where we should use our discretion. And in this case, I'm satisfied with what transpired as being within our ability to waive these fees. So I'm going to support this waiver request.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you. I can't support this request for a waiver. The information that council was given would indicate that this house was purchased sometime in late May, and I believe that would be public knowledge, so I see no reason to not talk about it. There would have been a lawyer or lawyers involved in that house transfer. In Alberta, there always is. It would seem to me that it would be standard and common practice for a legal team advising a home buyer that if the transfer is taking place close to the property tax cutoff date, and it's common knowledge, by the way, that Land Title's office is slow. They work at their own agenda and at their own pace in registering title. I'm sure the lawyer would have advised the prospective owners, the new owners, that land titles will be slow, could be held up, and that you should contact the city to question what your property tax bill will be. I'm confident that that advice was given. Whether or not it was, I have no proof. If it wasn't given, it should have been given. In which case, if there's a claim for 100 and whatever number of dollars for this late payment penalty, perhaps it should go back to the lawyer for failure to give proper legal advice at the time the property transfer was handled. It's not a problem of the cities. It's a problem of the purchaser and their legal advisor. It's unfortunate, absolutely, but it's not compassionate grounds. In no way stretch of the imagination is legal advice ever compassionate. It's professional advice. And I think the claim property, if there is a claim property, rests on that side of the equation, not the city's side. And for those reasons, I will not support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will go to Councillor Abatoye to close.
Really nothing further on close. It looks like we have the votes that we need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion is now closed. The council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties as presented. Please cast your vote. That is carried 4-3. Thank you. Okay, we'll continue on with the next waiver request for tax roll property 4623101. Go ahead, Trish.
My apologies. On July the 20th, 2021, the City of Fort Saskatchewan received an application from the property owner of tax roll 4613101 requesting a waiver for property tax late payment penalties in accordance with the property tax penalty waiver policy and procedures. As of August 25th, 2021, the property owner has paid the full balance of property tax arrears, including the late payment penalties in the amount of $114.12. The property owner has consequently made an application for council to consider late payment penalty reimbursement for other reasons as submitted in their application. Administration is not authorized to make this decision, as only council has the authority to waive late payment penalties for property taxes. Again, council will have two alternatives as outlined below. One, that council deny the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4623101 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $114.12. Or two, that council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4623101 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $114.12. I can answer any questions.
Point of order, Mayor Ketcher. I just wanted to confirm something. In my stuff, we're doing 4614433. So I just want to confirm that we're doing it just out of order. So I just want to be clear which one we're talking to.
Yeah, and Ms. Norman, I think you gave us the wrong one. I said 4614433. That's
my apologies. I heard you read it out as 4623101.
I apologize if I read it out wrong. I'm sorry. I've got lots of paper.
No problem. I can start with 4614433 and keep it in the order that we had it in the agenda.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, my apologies. We'll go back to that one. Thank you.
On July 12th, 2021, the City of Fort Saskatchewan received an application along with supporting document from the property owner of property tax roll 4614433 requesting a waiver for property tax late payment penalties in accordance with the property tax penalty waiver policy and procedures. As of July 9th, the property owner has paid the full balance of outstanding property tax arrears, including late payment penalties, in the amount of $237.03. The property owner has consequently made an application for council to consider late payment penalty reimbursement for other reasons as submitted in their application. Administration is not authorized to make this decision, as only council has the authority to waive late payment penalties for property taxes. Council has two alternatives as outlined below. One, that council deny the request to waive late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4614433 on July 1st, 2021 in the amount of $237.03, or 2, that council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4614433 on July 1st, 2021 in the amount of $237.03. Thank you, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So with questions, I'll go to Councillor Sperling first. Do you have any questions? None? Okay, thank you. I have no questions on this one. Councillor Lennox?
I do. I just want to put it out into the public realm a little bit in that there was a check and there was also a stop payment on a check that was provided to pay the taxes. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Lennox, that is correct.
And so the resident provided as information that stop payment information just to show that the initial check perhaps was issued.
Through your worship, that is correct. We received a statement from the charge that they paid to their bank for the stop payment on the check. We did not receive a copy of the check itself, just the stop payment statement from the bank.
So they would have been charged for that, for the stop payment?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon, questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye?
So just to be clear quickly, so are you saying we never received the first check?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, that is correct. The city did not ever receive the initial check that was sent.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harris, any questions? Okay, thank you. So I will go to a motion. Councillor Harris, you're putting this motion on?
Well, given the decision in the previous one, I'm going to move number 2. I'm totally opposed to that, but I'm going to move number 2 to cancel the tax penalty because this appears to be a good reason. So I'm putting it on the table. We can debate the merits.
Did you wish to speak in favor or?
Let's just say I'm putting it on the table. Let's see where it goes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling on the motion.
I feel very similar to this one as I did the last, and I would deny a request for a waiver of the late payment penalty. And specifically, I'm not picking on these people in particular, but there's no, in reality, there's really no evidence that that check was ever issued. Yes, they put a stop payment on it, but to say that check showed up and it had, somewhere along the way there's some evidence that it was actually issued. I don't see that here. So unfortunately, I'm going to vote against Councillor Harris's motion.
Okay, thank you. I have no comments on this one. Councillor Lennox.
So I guess I look at it from the perspective of more likely than not. And so to me, a normal person would not go through the extensive process of going to the bank, canceling the check, and then being charged a fee for that. So to me, it's on the balance of probabilities. And for me, the balance of probabilities is on the side of what a reasonable person would do. And it sounds like that is what they did. And so I would be in favor of Councillor Harris's motion.
Thank you. Councillor Macon.
Sorry, my microphone didn't want to stay on. I'm going to support the motion. I do think it's reasonable to believe what has been presented to us. I know it's happened to me 3 times with the same company. So And I had to do the same thing as these people. So I don't have any reason to believe that they're not being truthful. And so I believe it's a legitimate reason. I'll support the waiver.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Harris, you took me by surprise here. I'm arguing using negative words rather than positive words. Whether or not there's proof that they mailed the check on the day they say they did is, in my mind, inconsequential. Absolutely inconsequential. You have an obligation, and any resident of more than a few years in any city in Alberta will know by rote memory that June 30th is your tax deadline date. That will be beat into you and fundamental. So if you mail a check more than 30 days in advance, good. It also behooves you, because we're now trusting the mail, to confirm that in fact that check was actually received by the city and cashed by the due date. And a phone call could have been made on June 30th to confirm the payment. There's no evidence that such phone call was made. These people promptly paid their bill, and that is great. There are many alternative ways of paying your property taxes to ensure that you don't get a surprise penalty. Again, any resident or homeowner with years of experience will know those routes. You can go to the bank and pay it at the bank, and as we heard earlier in comments made by administration, that they look at the date that the bank actually received the payment. So if there's a cutoff error or problem and the city actually doesn't receive their money till after the long weekend, in July long weekend, for instance, on July 3rd or something, or 4th, they still give the taxpayer credit for having made the payment on time if in fact the bank received the money prior to the deadline date. Of course, homeowners can also sign up for the monthly withdrawal, monthly payment plan, which removes virtually 100% any potential for a payment penalty on June 30th. Given that, those comments, I cannot support Mr. Harris's or Councillor Harris's motion. It is unfortunate, but I know from practical experience in my younger days, when I was one day late paying my Visa bill, it wasn't a 3% penalty. It was a much larger penalty, and they absolutely showed no inkling of sympathy whatsoever. And like I said, June 30th should be ingrained firmly in the mind of every homeowner in Alberta. That is the date across the province without exception. So sorry, can't vote in favor of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye.
Yes, Councillor Harris definitely took me by surprise on that one as well. But I will happily support your motion. I really think that, just like Councillor Lennox had mentioned, like no normal person is going to go through all this trouble, you know, to get refunded $100. And so I really want to err on the side of caution and be like, and agree with that the person is actually saying the truth, and based on that reason, supports their request for a refund on this property tax penalty. Because if they had 30 days to mail in a check, then if things had worked out the way they should work out, considering it's in Fort Saskatchewan, it wasn't leaving Fort Saskatchewan, that check should have gotten to the city within a few days. But obviously a month after, the city didn't get it. And so I think based on that reason, for human error, not sure what error it is, but just based on the circumstances that this person has presented, I think I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Harris to close.
I hope you appreciate that what I've done is for a particular reason. I'm trying to make a point here. The people ultimately made a mistake. I get that. My approach in the past, and as I said, I dealt with this for 5 years, and I dealt with many of these tax favor, more than the city has dealt with in our term of council. And I would never have recommended a waiver, because there are like two reasons in my mind to grant a waiver, and these are not the reasons. So ultimately, what happened in the last one, which I think could happen here, is that we are exercising some discretion. And so Councillor Kelly said it well. And that is ultimately my intuition towards these sorts of things. But I sense that there is compassion on our council to do some things that I ordinarily would not show compassion for. And given the fact that we only charge a very small penalty to those people that choose not to pay or make a mistake in not paying their taxes on June 30th, that in itself is consideration for taxpayers in the city of Fort Saskatchewan. If I had my way, I'd make it 18%. You want to talk about big penalties then? You'd be talking big penalties. This is small stuff. And so I'm making a point here, and I really don't know how I'm going to vote. But you know, the vote carried the last one, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't carry this one. So let's let her go. And I'm making a point because we got two more. And if you're going to be consistent, you got to vote for all of them in the same way. I don't see a whole heck of a lot of difference here. There are no differences on the conditions. So let's let her go and see where it happens.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is now closed on property tax 4614433. Please cast your vote. Motion is carried 4-3. Okay, so we will proceed with the next one in order.
Thank you, Mayor Catcher. As a note, property tax rules 462-3101 and 462-3102 will be read separately. On July 20th, 2021, the City of Fort Saskatchewan received an application from the property owner of tax rule 462-3101, requesting a waiver for property tax late payment penalties in accordance with the property tax penalty waiver and policy and procedures. As of August 25th, 2021, the property owner has paid the full balance of the outstanding property tax arrears, including late payment penalties in the amount of $114.12. The property owner has consequently made an application for council to consider late payment penalty reimbursement for other reasons as submitted in their application. Administration is not authorized to make this decision, as only council has the authority to waive late payment penalties for property taxes. Council has two alternatives as outlined below. One, that council deny the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax rule 462-3101 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $114.12. Or two, that council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax rule 462-3101 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $114.12. Thank you, and I can answer any questions you now have.
Okay, thank you. I'm first in order for questions. I don't have any. Councillor Lennox?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macon?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
I'm waiting to hear if there's any compassionate grounds for this one before I comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye?
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
Comments still stand.
Councillor Sperling, clarifying questions?
No clarifying questions, thanks.
Thank you. So I will go to Councillor Sperling for a motion.
So much like I voted so far, I'm going to go with alternative number 1, which is that council deny the request to waive the late payment penalty applied to the associated property tax rule 462-3101 on July 1st and August 1st in the amount of $114.12. Unlike the other requests we've had for a waiver today, this one really has no extenuating circumstances with the exception of the current economic conditions in the city, in the province, in the country right now. So I am going to choose alternative 1 to deny the request.
Okay, thank you. So I'll accept the motion to deny the request. I have nothing on discussion and debate. Councillor Lennox.
I will support the motion, and I would agree with Councillor Sperling's summary, I guess, of reasons to support that motion. And just to the discussion a little bit about discretion, and I do think that there is the ability to have discretion because issues I don't think are always black and white, and that there are some gray areas. And I guess I just kind of pull from my experience in law enforcement in that you have to take the circumstances as they come. And some circumstances are obviously different than other ones. And so I think it's important for us as a council and as human beings to exercise our discretion. So I will support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Macon.
I'll support the motion. I don't have any further comments.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
I'd just like to take a second or a minute to try to explain what I see as an inconsistency here in the. So economic circumstances beyond a taxpayer or property owner's control, which makes it difficult or perhaps even impossible to pay the taxes on time. That deserves a penalty. But for lawyers' advice or mailing a check without follow-up deserves a waiver. I honestly, personally, would side with the people that have had economic situations thrust upon them through no part of their own behavior and having to deal with them. Personally, I find that easier to offer compassionate grounds on than I do mistake. It's the way I see it, and I sympathize with people in our economy and in our city who've been thrashed about with the economic circumstances of the last couple of years. I feel for them deeply. That's compassion. Mistakes happen all the time. We all pay for mistakes. It's called an education, and it's always expensive. We've all made them. I've made mine. I pay the freight. I move on. Some with chagrin, but I move on, vowing to not let it happen again. That's life. Anyway, we have in this council has voted against waivers in the past. Requests for waivers citing economic circumstances. And I don't know why we would change our position this particular year. I just offer up one more comment. And in more than 40 years of dealing with Revenue Canada on the subject of taxes on behalf of many hundreds of people per year, never once did I ever see Revenue Canada offer a waiver of interest or penalties. It doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen because they're taxes. Taxes aren't normally paid voluntarily, and in more than 40 years of being a public accountant, I never had one taxpayer thank the government for collecting the money. It just doesn't happen. It's an ugly task that we all as citizens have to do annually. It's the freight of being a citizen of this country and this community. It's just life. And so, sorry, I vote with this one. I think we got a motion and we can live with. That's great. Let's move on. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye on the motion.
I will not be supporting this motion. I think that what's good for one is good for all. These are really trying times, and if we're going to waive the penalty for the other two, while I understand that it's discretionary, I also understand that these times are really trying times and people are really struggling with their finances. And so for that reason, I won't support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
My point is pretty clear. I wouldn't have granted any of these right off the bat. None of that compassionate stuff. You got to pay your taxes by June the 30th. At this point, though, we've done two. We're doing them all as far as I'm concerned. That's for consistency's sake.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling on close.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, so on this one, 4623101 to deny, the motion is now closed. Please cast your vote. Jennifer, do you need somebody? Oh, there it is. Motion is carried 5-2. All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next one, ending 4623102. Go ahead, Trish.
Thank you, Mayor Catcher. On July 20th, 2021, the City of Fort Saskatchewan received an application from the property owner of Tax Roll 3613202, requesting a waiver for property tax late payment penalties in accordance with the property tax penalty waiver policy and procedures. As of August 25th, 2021, the property owner has paid the full balance of outstanding property tax arrears, including late payment penalties in the amount of $81.27. The property owner has consequently made an application for council to consider late payment penalty reimbursement for other reasons as submitted in their application. Administration is not authorized to make this decision, as only council has the authority to waive late payment penalties for property taxes. Council has two alternatives as outlined in the report. Number one, that council deny the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4623102 on July 1st and August 1st of 2021 in the amount of $81.27, or that council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4623102 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $81.27. Thank you, and I can answer any questions you now have.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Lennox first on questions.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macon. Councillor Kelly.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye. Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Nothing, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sperling.
No questions.
Done.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Lennox for a motion.
I move that council deny the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll number 4623102 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $81.27.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak in favor of your motion?
Yeah, I will. And I mean, these are difficult. And you know, of course, I think everybody here has compassion for people that are experiencing difficult times, especially during this pandemic. For me, the difference between this one and the last one and the first two were circumstances and documentation. And there is no supporting documentation on this. And so I suspect that there's a lot of people in similar circumstances who found a way to do what needed to be done. And again, certainly have compassion for those that are struggling during this time. And I will leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I've accepted the motion that council deny the request. It's been spoken in favor of. It's open for discussion and debate. Councillor Macon.
Yeah, as Councillor Lennox said, these decisions are not easy. And I came in thinking I knew what I wanted to do for these two, and then I said what I wanted to do, and then I listened to what other members of council said, and it actually swayed my opinion the other way. Although those members voted opposite me, you did convince me to change my vote. So I think that there is always room for consideration, and we take these one at a time, and I could easily vote the other way as well, but I think I'm not going to support the motion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
I just want to be clear. The motion made was alternative number one.
That's correct. To deny the request.
I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye on the motion.
I'm going to vote the way I voted the last 3 times. I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Councillor Sperling.
I'll support the motion.
Thank you. I'm going to support the motion as well. And I think what's really important is that's why there's 7 members of council to talk these through, to be influenced. And yes, sometimes there's going to be compassionate reasons that the majority believe and other times there aren't. So it's really about voting your conscience when you're voting these. And I think that that's what's really important. And that's why there are several people on council. So I will support the motion. Councillor Lennox on close.
Yeah, just to close this out, I would just say that, you know, I think it comes down to choice a lot of times. And I think the majority of residents made the choice to pay their taxes on time. And lots of times acknowledge also that it is a difficult choice for some people and that it may come down to groceries or paying your tax bill. And that is a reality of that some people live. But the other reality is opening up ourselves to absolutely everybody coming in saying that they're experiencing difficult financial times and expecting the city to waive their fees. So I support, again, having the discretion to go through these one by one and obviously support the motion.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is now closed that council deny the request. Please cast your vote. So the motion carries 4-3. Thank you very much. We're going to do one more and then we will take a break. All right, so we'll try and get these ones finished so I don't tie Miss Norman up. So go ahead with the last one.
Thank you, Mayor Catcher. On July the 26th, 2021, the City of Fort Saskatchewan received an application from the property owner of Tax Roll 461-4327 requesting a waiver for property tax late payment penalties in accordance with property tax penalty waiver policy and procedures. As of August 16th, 2021, the property owner has paid the full balance of outstanding property tax arrears, including late payment penalties, in the amount of $193.41. The property owner has consequently made an application for council to consider late payment penalty reimbursement under compassionate grounds. The administration is not authorized to make this decision, as only council has the authority to waive late payment penalties for property taxes. Council has 2 alternatives as outlined in this report. Alternative 1, that council deny the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 461-4327 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $193.41, or that council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 461-4327 on July 1st and August 1st, 2021 in the amount of $193.41. Thank you, and I can now answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. With questions, Councillor Macon, anything?
Yes. Sorry, can you just confirm, Trish, what day the payment was made?
Through your worship,
I think you said something different than we have written from the applicant.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, for sure. I just think that it's different what you said than what the applicant said. So can you just confirm what day the city received the payment?
Through your worship, on August the 16th of 2021, we did receive the full payment. I will clarify, however, that before they can submit the application for the property tax penalty waiver, the penalties themselves have to be paid. So they paid the initial levy of the property taxes, and then on August the 16th paid the balance of the penalties, which is why you would see a difference in the payment dates that they noted.
Okay, sorry. I think I misunderstood something you said. What was the day then that they paid their actual property tax levy? Not the late payment fees.
Through your worship, they did make the payment on July the 1st.
Okay, Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye? Thank you. Councillor Harris?
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Sperling?
Just a quick question. July 1st is a holiday, so I'm just curious how payment was made.
Through your worship, to Councillor Sperling, I would have to look back to the property tax roll.
No,
and
no
confirm that.
problem. I was just curious. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. Councillor Lennox?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I will go to Councillor Macon for a motion.
Sure. Make the motion and see where it goes. I'll make the motion the council grant the request to waive the late payment penalties applied to the associated property tax roll 4614327 on July 1st and August 1st in the amount of 193.41.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept the motion that is to grant the request. Would you like to speak in favor of your motion?
Only to say that we take every application and read it. I have seen no reason to believe that they're being dishonest about the circumstances. So for me, I would prefer to waive it at this time.
Okay, thank you. On discussion and debate, Councillor Kelly?
To me, there should be some logic that applies to this whole process. I own a couple properties in town. For 40 years, I have paid my taxes on or before June 30th. More than 40 years, actually. And I fail to see why people wouldn't pay their property taxes by June 30th. I've said earlier, the monthly payment plan is an excellent option to help people through financial difficulties. It's an excellent option. And I think at a minimum, if we are to waive this particular $193.41, I'm going to stop there. And Trish, I have a question. Are these people signed up for the monthly payroll or payment plan now? Yes or no?
Through your worship, to Councillor Kelly, no, they are not.
Thank you. But at a minimum, a condition be placed on this one. They only get their $193.41 back if they enroll. And when they enroll in the monthly payment plan. So the council doesn't have to deal with this issue. Future councils don't have to deal with this issue again, at least on this particular property for the current ownership period. And no disrespect to the people involved. It's taxes, the date is known. If you think you're going to have a problem, pay it monthly. So I'm going to vote. I'm struggling with whether or not I want to make an amendment to the motion. So I'll listen to the other comments. Mayor Catcher, please come back to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye, you're next.
So considering this resident has never defaulted in their property taxes before, and they made the payment a day after the deadline, like I get where Councillor Kelly is coming from, but I also struggle with just putting a condition and making them do what they might not necessarily want to do. I think it's just two choices we have here, is that we approve it or we give them the money back, or we don't. Or putting a condition on top of it before we give them the money, I feel like it's, I don't know, I think it's kind of beyond what we should be doing as a council. But I will support the motion based off of everything I've said in the previous ones. Again, these are challenging times. I don't think this specific resident has or had financial issues, as that wasn't really noted. It was just a matter of, I don't know, lateness, paid to day late. But just because I feel like we have to treat all of them similarly, if we're gonna approve everything, then we should approve everything. If we're gonna deny everything, we should deny everything. That's just where I stand. I know in the past we've denied a few of these requests. But for me personally, in these times, again, we're just in really hard times. Like people are really struggling, you know, just based off of that. That's why I need a supporting or you know, not supporting the motions. But generally, I would like to see the monies refunded, because I mean, these are not monies that the city had forecasted, you know, so these are not money that the city planned or has planned to as part of our revenues, you know. So really, I think I'm just fine refunding their money back.
Thank you. Councillor Sperling on the motion.
I think Councillor Harris is up, is he not?
I think so.
Sorry, I need a break too. Councillor Harris, I'm sorry, I apologize. You're up next.
The conversations tonight on all of these matters underscore a very significant deficiency. First of all, I think there are no reasons, short of my dog died and whatever, that ultimately should be part of the public record. So-and-so person did not pay their taxes on time. Why? What is the reason for why they are requesting a waiver? There's nothing in any of these that would suggest to me that they need to be protected in a privacy context. So that's my first thing. And I'd almost contemplate a notice of motion to totally review the whole process of tax penalty waivers. Because what we've done is we've opened the floodgate. Wait until next year. The next council is going to have all kinds of interesting things if this stuff gets up. I voted consistent to you know, I wanted all of them to be denied, bottom line. And none of them should have been granted, but to be consistent with form, that's why I voted contrary to my first situation. So in this case, I'll vote in support of the thing. It's a tax penalty holiday Christmas break today, as far as I'm concerned. I would never have voted for these things in the past, but I saw where it was going. So it's Christmas, folks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling on the motion.
The motion is to deny the request.
No, the motion is to grant.
Okay, so I will not be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. I'll just reserve my comments. I think there's been lots said. Councillor Lennox.
I have nothing further to add, I think. I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I'll go around again. I see there's more than one. So Councillor Macon.
I just wanted to make a comment on Councillor Kelly's suggestion. I actually agree with that suggestion. I do think that allowing residents that option in lieu of the penalties is a great idea. I just wouldn't want to see it applied arbitrarily to one request today. I'd love to see that come back as a policy change, but I wouldn't be in favor of just applying it today on this one particular file. But like, I do actually think that that is not a bad idea for us to discuss in the future.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to comment on the consistency comments that I've heard from some councillors tonight. The consistency that we should be applying applies to all taxpayers within the city of Fort Saskatchewan, not just those that pay their taxes late, to all taxpayers. What is fair for one is fair for all. Absolutely, that's consistency. And when 99.9% of property owners pay their taxes on time, that's the standard. And exceptions need to be judged harshly and carefully because the standard has been set. So consistency is for all taxpayers. That's who we represent, period. Period. Can be, I found this whole discussion tonight on this issue unbelievably frustrating, and I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye, anything further?
No further comments. I think I've said my beats.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, anything further?
Yeah, Councillor Kelly just phrased it really nicely. I think this process just needs to be reframed in a way that we can ultimately look at it in a truly objective context. Councillor Lennox made a good comment that that could conceivably be something that, if you've paid and you only miss by one day as opposed to 3 or 6 or 12 or 9, that becomes just crazy. Trying to figure that out would be a nightmare. But if there are circumstances, it might be such that, yeah, we can consider waiving your penalty if you move and stay on the monthly. And I'm surprised that everybody is on the monthly payment plan. I've been on that for years, and it's the best way to budget for the payment of your taxes. But in certain circumstances, people are moving around, they're buying places, they can't get on it, things happen. So what are the circumstances that ultimately might be considered legitimate? And notwithstanding that, it shouldn't be privileged information. It should be part of the public record. And that's something that I think we really need to look at from a consistency stake in terms of information sharing. The public has a right to know why we are doing the things that we do. And unless it is so personal, so fundamentally personal, there is no other reason that I can see that it should be not part of the public record. We dealt with the stuff in camera, we got a sense for that. I don't agree with that. So, you know what, at this point in time, looks to me like it's going in a direction. I'll leave it at that, and we'll see where the vote ends up on this last one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling.
Just a comment on the payment plan or the payment option that's been thrown out there. Whether it's an annual, quarterly, or monthly payment, if the money ain't there, the money ain't there. So even if you set them up for a monthly payment, if those dollars aren't in the bank, whether it was annual, monthly, or quarterly, it doesn't matter. I don't see the benefit of insisting on a monthly plan. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you. It's been a lot of good discussion and debate on this tonight, and I'll go around again. I'll come back around. And when I listened to this, previously, Councillor Harris is right. We really never approved any tax waivers. And I think it was within this term that we had one where there was really extenuating circumstances, and this council said, what, go out and create a policy that, if it's about compassionate, then we'll make the decision whether it's compassion or not. And there was some requirements that were included within that policy. So as I go through there and I look at what the compassionate reasons potentially could be, that's where I'm kind of going to when I'm making my decisions on these. What I've heard tonight is everybody knows tax day is June 30th. So you have to get your check in. And I agree, if you haven't got the money, then you've got to figure something out. And it's really difficult. But I remember back at the time that we did this, there was two that had some really compelling reasons. And I'm not going to say what they were because we had heard those in camera. And and that's why we allowed for a compassionate reason. But as soon as you put that into policy, that's when you have to make a conscious decision, what you deem is compassionate or not. And it's as simple as that. And and that's why I voted for the first one. And that's why I haven't voted for the other ones. So I deem the first one to be compassionate, and maybe I agree a little bit with what Councillor Kelly said about maybe the lawyer should have to look at that. But I dealt in my own conscience, I saw that as compassionate, but the other ones I haven't. So I'm going to leave it with that. But we do have a policy. If we want to go back and and have administration review the policy again, then we would have to come back and give some direction to what it is that we want to see for compassionate grounds and things. So I will leave it with that. Councillor Lennox?
Yeah, I actually agree with Councillor Harris as far as the transparency piece. And I think that if part of the application process should be also permission to have the circumstances dealt with in public. And so that with that there should be informed consent would be my perspective. And then at the end of the day, I think we all may or may not have to justify to members of the public as to why we make our decisions that we make individually. So, and I agree, you know, if the policy said that we make no exceptions whatsoever, and then it would be really easy, but we do have a policy that allows for some discretion. And I think members of council have used that. And at the end of the day, it's the public that really is the judge and jury. So, and yeah, so I will, I can't even remember what the motion is. I don't think I'm supporting this one.
The motion is to grant. Okay, so, all right. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm just looking to see. Okay, Councillor Macon, did you have anything further? I know Councillor Kelly still has one more comment or question.
Then you can go to Councillor Kelly.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
I'd just like to get back to Councillor Sperling's comments. And I agree wholeheartedly. If the money isn't there and the finances are that tight, that unfortunate homeowner or property owner has some decisions to make, or some decisions will be made for them. That happens. In all of the cases we've discussed tonight, the payments were made in short order after June 30th. In all of these cases, the funds were obviously available. And if they're on the monthly payment plan, we wouldn't have had this discussion. We wouldn't have wasted an hour on it, or more than an hour, with a significant amount of frustration and inconsistency in application as far as I'm concerned. And I'll leave it at that. The monthly payment plan works.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Batoy, anything further? I'll just go through to make sure nothing further. Councillor Harris, anything further?
No, I said everything I need to say.
Okay, Councillor Sperling.
You know, Councillor Kelly, either the money's there or the money's not. Simple as that.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further. Councillor Lennox, anything further?
The only thing I would add, because I didn't address Councillor Kelly's comments about the monthly payment plan, which I absolutely agree and would advocate that people should be on it. But I don't know that the city wants to be seen as putting their tax penalties as leverage to making them sign up for a program. And that it would be my only hesitancy. I think perhaps maybe some sort of educational, again, communication, or maybe even, you know, if the province can offer everybody $100 to go get vaccinated, maybe we can offer, you know, $25 to sign up for your monthly tax payment plan. So, but I would like to see some sort of campaign to get people to sign up on a positive way. So that would be my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon on close.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of discussion tonight, and I really appreciate all the comments. You know what, for myself, I don't think that I'm applying anything inconsistently. I think that I look at every single one of them, and you know, when I saw that we had 5, you know, I opened up my agenda thinking, yep, they would likely all be no's, right? But I read every single one and I considered it. And the thing is that we do have a policy that allows us that discretion. And if we never get to use that discretion, or the point is that we never use it, then why is the policy even there? I think that's why there's 7 of us, so that so that we can have these discussions, and it's a majority vote. Some of them passed tonight and some of them didn't, and that is a perfect example of how council works. So those are my comments, and let's vote.
Okay, thank you. So just as everybody knows, the motion is now closed, and this one is that council grant the request. So please cast your vote.
Your worship, if they leave the vote up a little longer, I mean, they just flashed through it. I had no idea how it ended up. So I'd like to see it for a few seconds longer. Thank you.
We'll see if Jennifer can do that or not. I'm not sure. Jennifer, do you need, Okay, Jennifer, are you there? Are we missing somebody?
Sorry, Your Worship, my computer froze, so it should be open now.
Okay, I'm not sure if yours, okay, if you can just put the motion down, Leo. Was everybody able to cast a, oh, there it is. Whoops. Oh, okay, it's now up. Not the right one. Okay.
My iPad, Mayor Catcher, is asking me to vote again.
Yeah, mine is too. Okay, she said her computer had frozen up, so maybe revote. The motion is defeated. 4 no, 3 yes. Okay, so that motion fails. So that is declined. All right, so we're going to take a break. It's 5:07. I'm going to say, let's take enough of a break. We've still got quite a few things to cover. Let's come back at 5:20. That gives everybody 13 minutes for a proper break and a stretch. So we will go into recess. Thank you. Okay, if everybody would like to start returning. Councillor Kelly, if you can join us. Councillor Kelly, are you able to join us? It's 5:21. There we are. Okay, thank you. Okay, we will reconvene the meeting. The next item that we have is 11.7, public member appointment to the River Valley Alliance Community Engagement Committee. Brenda Moulter presenting.
Your Worship and members of council, tonight I am presenting a request for approval of a new member to the River Valley Alliance Community Engagement Committee. Marianne Woodman is being presented as for the recommendation of the appointment for the remainder of a 2-year term to take place from September 15th, 2021 to December 31st, 2022. And with that, I would ask for support for her appointment.
Okay, I will just see if there's any questions. Any questions, Councillor Kelly?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Batoye? You're good? Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris, any?
Yeah, just one general question to Brenda and to Jibs. How was the response to our vacancy on this particular committee? Were there other applicants? I'm totally supportive of this, obviously, but I was just curious what the uptake was.
Your Worship, to Councillor Harris, and I suspect that Councillor Abatoye can supplement my comments. I believe this vacancy has been going on for quite some time. We have advertised a couple of times for members, and we recently re-advertised, and Ms. Woodman applied and was interviewed. And I would ask Councillor Abatoye if she could has any other insight on that.
Yes, so I believe that when we had put out a position on the policing committee, Ms. Woodman had indicated that if she didn't get into the policing committee, then her second choice or her other interest would be the RVA. And so when the opportunity came, and obviously she was available and willing, and she's actually really passionate about, being on the board. As a matter of fact, the board chair who was also there during the interview was actually pretty impressed by her passion and her background. So.
Well, thank you for that clarification. It's quality over
She was
quantity.
the only applicant, essentially.
So quality over quantity. So I'm glad to hear that, because this is going to be an important committee. It's not the board, but it is the committee. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
I have none. Councillor Lennox?
I have no questions, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Macon?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Abatoye is on she's on the selection committee. Councillor Harris is on the River Valley Alliance, but we are in rotation. So I am going to Councillor Kelly for the motion.
Certainly, thank you. I move that just a second, wrong one. I move that council approve the appointment of Marianne Woodman to the River Valley Alliance Community Engagement Committee for the balance of a 2-year term commencing September 15, 21 and expiring on December 31, 2022.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak in favor of your motion?
I am confident that Marianne Woodman will be an excellent representative for the City of Fort Saskatchewan on the committee. I look forward to great things from this particular committee going forward and wholeheartedly support their actions. Thank you.
Thank you. On discussion and debate, Councillor Abatoye.
Yeah, I fully support the motion. As a matter of fact, I believe the RVA hadn't had an active committee member up until now. So I think it's really nice to have her on the committee to represent the community, and just with her passion, I think she'll do great.
Great, thank you. Councillor Harris.
I want to fill in something here. The Community Engagement Committee has just recently gone through a fairly significant change on the terms of reference for what the committee is designed to do. So the board, of which I'm a member representing the City of Fort Saskatchewan, deals with the substance of what the RVA is all about. Community engagement is meant to be the point of contact with the public, and how the public from the member municipalities get engaged to celebrate the river and the trails and all that sort of stuff. So there is a new chair who is a member of the board of that particular committee, and that individual is working hard to make the work of the Community Engagement Committee worthwhile. Because in the past, the terms of reference was pretty weak. And so people lost interest. And I'm thinking that going forward, the celebration of the River Valley and the trail network is going to see a significant increase. And to have a person that has got this level of interest, I think speaks very well for our ability to influence the work and the interests and the activities of the community engagement for the RVA. So I fully support it. I'm glad to see somebody step forward and wants to do it. And they will probably have fun now, whereas in the past, I don't think it was all that much fun, but it should be now.
Okay, thank you for those insights. Councillor Sperling.
I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll support the motion as well. It's always great to see our community members step up, and the River Valley Alliance is a very important committee, and I think they do great work. So it'll be nice to have somebody on there. Councillor Lennox.
I support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Macon.
I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly, anything on close?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion is now closed to approve Mary Ann Woodman to the RVA Community Engagement Committee. Please cast your vote. I'm just going to check in with you, Jennifer. Do you need somebody to do a verbal?
Yes, Your Worship. It looks like yourself. I have a few. Councillor Harris, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Lennox, and Councillor Macon. I don't know if the computer froze again or the program, but.
So what I would suggest, just put that down, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands, and I'll tell you who supports and doesn't. So those in favor, please raise your hands. So that's carried unanimously. So you can put those in, and hopefully it should populate it. So are you able to populate those, Jennifer? Did it freeze up on you?
It froze up on me again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We've got it recorded though.
Okay, so then we will continue on. So for everybody's information, I am going to move the next item 11.8 until the end of the meeting because we still have a bylaw on here that they're asking for 3 readings. And for some reason, if I didn't receive 3 readings, we would utilize the September 28th meeting to bring it back. So we will move 11.8 towards the end of the meeting and move on to 12.1 at this point in time, Bylaw C30-21.
Good evening, Your Worship. My name is John Dance, General Manager of Corporate Services. I am here before you with Bylaw C30-21, which formalizes the Intermunicipal Relations Committee with Strathcona County. Strathcona County is doing, or actually has done, the same bylaw today at their meeting of council and passed this. The bylaw formalizes the IMRC committee function and structure and provides enhanced clarity around meeting procedures. The details and the specifics of the IMRC do not change under the new bylaw. It just is simply formalizing some processes and procedures and aligns with the Strathcona County bylaw. So 3 readings of the bylaw before you are upon you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to questions. So I've got Councillor Abatoye, you're first.
No questions. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
No questions. I think this is probably just formalization. Something probably makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, so I do have a question. The question that I have is really, so is it the intent to do this with any of the other boards or committees that we have, is to actually have them under bylaws where it sets the terms of reference and the protocols?
To Your Worship, I think we do have a number of them already, primarily the internal boards. So we do have a bylaw for the Policing Committee, the Library Emergency Advisory Committee, and Special Transportation Services. So we do have a number of them also operate under terms of reference. The impetus of this one in particular was through Strathcona County, and they were updating theirs, and it was just the coordination of the two. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Councillor Lennox?
Yeah, if you could just maybe expand a little bit, Mr. Dance, on I'm just not understanding why it's necessary to formalize it.
I guess through Your Worship to Councillor Lennox, probably wasn't in terms of the committee was operating. It was operating under the Common Bonds Agreement that lays out a number of different things. I guess one of the ones for me that why it made sense was we had a meeting not within the last 6 months or so when we weren't certain about what quorum was because it wasn't spelled out within the Common Bonds Agreement. So something like that wasn't articulated, and we were left to try to understand what defined quorum as part of IMRC. So it's housekeeping in many ways, and I think it's a good practice, and it's very specific. It allows future councils and future members of the committee to have clarity and understanding of what occurs with the committee when meetings are posted, how the public can access them, etc.
So when you say that, and when you make the comment about quorum, it makes me wonder if you're anticipating that decisions are going to be made in this context outside of council.
No, I think the bylaw is still very clear in terms of making recommendations to council. So it was actually just the ability to start a meeting to have a discussion with who was attending those particular meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Macon?
Evening, John. I just have one probably very minor question that for clarification. So under 8.3, it says if Strathcona County in the host municipality and the mayor is absent, then the Ward 5 councillor appointed to the committee shall serve as chair. Why specifically Ward 5. I just didn't know why that was in there. I just assumed it would be somebody else on the committee. Like that seems maybe it's specific to who's on there right now.
Through your worship to Councillor Macon, my understanding, the intent would simply be Ward 5 is currently Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith borders Fort Saskatchewan, is probably our closest councillor. So that would be the purpose of that.
So if they changed their people, then it would still be the Ward 5 councillor. It will always be that person who sits on IMRC.
That's correct.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. One question. Page 8 of the Common Bonds Agreement, or 161 for those of us that have a printed package. Left-hand column talks about what the committee will be structured, how the committee will be structured. And it says, first bullet point, mayor and one councillor from each municipality. Second bullet point is one additional councillor from each municipality as a rotating position at each meeting. We've never done that. I've never seen this before, never noticed this before. Why did our committee, IMRC committee, not follow the suggestions within the Common Bonds Agreement?
Through your worship to Councillor Kelly, I can't speak to why. I believe as we struck our committees and struck each organizational meeting looks at an annual review of our committees, and we had maintained those. I can't speak to the history of why we hadn't changed it.
Mr. Fleming, I believe he can.
Yeah, through your worship, there was, and I'm trying to remember if it would have been this council or the previous council where the discussion happened, but there was an intentional choice made a few years back that with the annexation negotiations being so sensitive and such a long-term ongoing matter, that it would be beneficial for us to have continuity with all of the members of the IMRC committee so that negotiation could be concluded. So it was intentional on our part. Like, we were aware that it was a rotating member, and then it was intentional to have it as a fixed member. But now that we're past that, we could go back to or whatever. But that's why we hadn't done it in the last few years. It was just it was an intentional, intentionally done because of the annexation.
Okay, fair enough. If it was intentionally done by the annexation, then why was it intentionally omitted in the bylaw?
And through your worship, I wasn't involved in the development of the bylaw, so I think we could, the bylaw would supersede the Common Bonds Agreement. So I think it would just be a choice whether or not we want to have a fixed member or a rotating member.
And just to add to Mr. Fleming, the bylaw does allow, and it talks about appointing it on an annual basis and reviewing it at the annual organizational meeting. So there's still that opportunity to rotate on an annual basis if that's council's choice, based on how the bylaw is written for Fort Saskatchewan. Strathcona County has chosen a 2-year rotation for their representatives.
Mayor Catcher, I'm going to think about this. Please come back. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will go through with round 2. Councillor Abatoye, you're next.
Yeah, so just a quick question. So you had mentioned that Strathcona County is also doing writing their own bylaws. So my question is, are our bylaws really similar, or are they different? And if they differ, then what are the differences? Because you just mentioned one, that they have a 2-year rotating basis, and we have one. What would be the other differences between the two?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, they're as identical as possible with those small subtle differences. In terms of formatting, they're going to look slightly different just because they use a different format, but the intent and the distinctions are very rare, other than what is within our organizational or our committee, our current committee policies and procedures talk about reviewing it on an annual basis. Theirs is on a 2-year basis.
So that's the only difference. Okay,
That's
thank
the
you.
major significant one, yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, anything further?
No, I'm okay with the bylaw if it formalizes it. I think, though, that there's still some interesting work that's going to come out of the discussions with Strathcona relative to service sharing. And we need some consistency on the committee as those discussions do proceed. So we may have to consider that in the context of how we maintain consistency. If we weren't doing much of that and it's just a good feel-good kind of committee and to maintain a good sub-regional relationship with Strathcona, then you could probably rotate membership and then other members of council would have some exposure to it, which I think is very beneficial because
Do you have a question?
it just
We're
opens.
still in questions.
Well, that's a question. Sounded like a question to me. Sorry.
Okay. I didn't take it as a question. I took it as a comment. I'm not sure Mr. Dance was able to get a question out of it. So
I'm sorry. I got carried away. It was so exciting. I apologize.
thank you. Councillor Sperling, do you have any questions?
No questions on this. No.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Councillor Lennox?
I don't have any further questions. I'll reserve some comments for debate. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Macon?
No more questions. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Mr. Fleming again, please, or John, either one. Given Councillor Harris's comments about the need for consistency, and I understand that, by the way, I'm not arguing that point. My thinking is, though, that the mayor and one councillor for a 2-year term and the second councillor rotating on a 2 or 3 month rotation through the committee makes some sense for this particular committee because they are our closest neighbor, and it gives a chance for all of us, all council members in turn, to be able to meet and commingle on a more formal develop a relationship with other councillors from the county. So the question is, do you see that as being a handicap for the business of the committee going forward for the next 4 years? If it were to have one permanent and one rotating member?
To your worship, so that's definitely doable because we used to do it that way. Just sharing the experience that we had before, because it's a group that tends to meet usually at the most on a quarterly basis, unless there's something significant going on. That essentially what that means is the third member of our group is brand new to each meeting is going to be a new person, like another councillor rotates through. And what we found was it was a little bit challenging from a continuity perspective, because if you have some kind of discussion that you're in the middle of, I mean, we would sometimes have a pre-meeting and you'd almost have to bring that person completely up to speed. Whereas the 3 members on Strathcona's side would have sort of all the background and the information. And it's not I don't want to give the impression that it was a huge debilitating problem, but I think even the third member themselves was more comfortable when they could attend multiple consecutive meetings, so rotating them through on a year would probably be better, because then at least you'd get 4 meetings in, and you'd have some continuity, versus like switching that third person every single meeting. So that'd just be my comment based on the experience we had before.
Okay, thank you. It sticks in my mind from reading this that there was a suggestion that the appointments be for a minimum of 2-year term. Is that recollection correct?
So through your worship to Councillor Kelly, so what we have written, Strathcona County does their appointments for 2 years, that municipality. So that's the process they use. So our policy, our current policy is written that on an annual basis at the organizational meeting, all committees are reviewed. So we have the ability to do it. We've put in a clause that say the preference is for members to be appointed for at least 2 years based on some of the opinions and perspectives that Mr. Fleming has just shared.
And given that preference, it's highly unlikely that it'll change annually. So, all right, thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to look for a show of hands if anybody has any other questions on this one. And if not, I will go to Councillor Abatoye for motions.
I'll make a motion that council gives first reading to bylaw C30-21, which establishes and prescribes the functions and procedures of the IMRC between City of Fort Saskatchewan and Strathcona County.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak in favor of it?
I think it just really makes sense. If Strathcona County has created a bylaw, it makes sense for us to, align to have this similar bylaws to govern this committee. And as John had earlier alluded, there was the issue with the quorum that's definitely been clarified with these bylaws, and probably certain things that have been clarified with these bylaws going forward. And so I think it's really something that's important to do, and I definitely support it.
Okay, thank you very much. It's open for discussion and debate. Councillor Harris, you're next.
I've said my piece. Thank you.
This is your time to say your piece.
Well, I've got some questions, actually. Sorry. I am so sorry about that. I just got carried away.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councillor Sperling on this one for first reading.
For first reading, just overall, I think the bylaw just creates some additional clarity in how the two municipalities will manage their IMRC relations committees. And the point that's been made about the rotating councillor on the committee, I think it's a good idea just to maintain some consistency to look at that position for the 2-year period that somebody else has suggested. So overall, though, I think this is a good motion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, and I'm good with this as well. Councillor Lennox.
My question, I guess, would be if communication is what it's supposed to be, and if the meetings are only, say, quarterly, the succession planning for this committee shouldn't be like a huge issue, should it? And so there would be opportunities not to rotate other members of council through.
Through your worship, I think that is the choice of council here, and both options are doable. It's just, like I said before, if somebody attends a 2-hour meeting and then somebody new attends the next 2-hour meeting, it's difficult to bring somebody up to speed on all of the nuances and the background of the past few meetings, So it was just our experience that giving people an extended period of time on the committee was useful. And it was also useful for the member themselves, because what you would get is a situation where you'd have 6 elected officials, and one of those 6 was essentially brand new to the committee, or maybe they'd been to a meeting before, but it was like a year and a half earlier. So, but I do agree with you, the better we can communicate and keep everyone up to speed, the easier it would be. But just our experience was that having that continuity was a little bit better.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Councillor Macon.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I will support the motion at hand as written. I agree with everything in there. I don't have any concerns.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
I'll support the motion as well. I understand the rationale around the appointment schedule. It does make sense, particularly if you get into something that is a bit involved. So So let's let it work its way through and see how it works over the next 4-year period and address it at the end of that, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abatoye on close.
Nothing further. I support the motion. I think we can vote now.
Okay, this is on first reading. So we'll see if the iPads are working. So I'll close the motion on first reading. Please cast your vote.
Your worship, I'm just waiting on Councillor Kelly, Councillor Macon, and Councillor Sperling.
Vote never came up for me this time, so I will vote in favor.
Councillor Kelly.
And just for clarification, my iPad is flashing at the top, vote in progress, but nothing is showing up on the screen. So there's something haywire in the system, obviously. I vote in favor.
And councillors. Okay, so
I'll vote in favor.
okay, that is carried unanimously. Would you like to proceed, Councillor Abatoye, for a second?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that council gives second reading to bylaw C30-21, which establishes and prescribes the functions and procedures of the IMRC between City of Fort Saskatchewan and Strathcona County.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything further on speaking in favor?
No.
Okay, you're good. I'm just going to look for a show of hands to see if there's any additional discussion or debate. Not seeing any. Excuse me. Anything on closed, Councillor Abatoye?
No, thank you.
Thank you. The motion is now closed on second reading. Please cast your vote.
I still can.
Kelly here in favor.
I'll support the Councillor Sperling.
Councillor Macon is in favor also.
Okay, that's carried unanimously. You may present it for unanimous consent.
Make motion that council gives unanimous consent to proceed with third reading of bylaw C30-21 as presented.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the motion. Please cast your vote.
I'm in favor, Councillor Sperling.
Kelly in favor. Thank you.
Councillor Macon in favor.
Your worship, just waiting for Councillor Harris.
Okay, I'm thinking on the next one, we're just going to put it down and take a show of hands because it appears nobody's able to actually record their vote. Councillor Harris?
No, I did, but it didn't make it through because of our technical issues. So I voted in support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That is carried unanimously for unanimous consent, and you may proceed with third reading. And we're just going to do it by a show of hands this time.
Okay. That council gives third reading to bylaw C30-21, which establishes and prescribes the functions and procedures of the IMRC between City of Fort Saskatchewan and Strathcona County.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any discussion and debate? I'm just going to look for a show of hands. Okay, Councillor Sperling.
Just a comment, and I think it came up a little bit earlier already during this motion, but just over the course of the last term with the IMRC committee, from time to time, I felt it was lacking a bit in terms of the sort of the minutes of the meeting getting back to council and their opportunity to review them and perhaps add them to an agenda and discuss them. So I would suggest that we ensure that that happens on a regular basis, much like our other committees. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on discussion and debate? If not, I will close the motion. And those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, so that's carried unanimously. Jennifer?
So I've got it, Your Worship.
Thank you. So the next item that we will go to is notice of motions. So the first one is the business development incentive procedure review. So Councillor Lennox, you may read it in.
I move that council direct administration to review the business development incentives procedures FIN-014-A with the intent of increasing flexibility on those property facades that would be eligible for the storefront improvement program no later than October 31st, 2021.
Okay, thank you. I'll accept the motion. You can go ahead and speak in favor of it.
I think the ladies from Twice But Nice did a great presentation and gave a really good example of the needed flexibility in the procedures. Again, going back to what we're trying to accomplish, I think as a council and as a community with respect to downtown, you know, if there's businesses that are wanting to improve their space, and then I think that the city should play a role in that and can play a role in that. And that's easily done by just adding some flexibility to what we already have. And I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is on the floor to direct administration to review the business incentive procedures. So it is open for questions. Councillor Harris, you're first on questions.
No questions. I thought the presentation was good, and I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling.
So I have a question. We talk about the, you know, what changes are included in here. And one of them is that it potentially could be used to improve the side view of a building. So I'm guessing that the side view would be something where it may be at the end of the block where the side of the building is fully visible for anybody traveling by it. But I also have a question, if I understand in that situation why it would apply, but what about those buildings that, because you see differences in heights in buildings, and you can see the side view of portions of buildings along 100th Avenue. And I was actually visiting with one of the business owners downtown doing a pretty extensive, he's having to do his building, and he happened to be at the end of the block, and he did have to upgrade the side of the building. But you can look down the street towards the north, and there are other building sidings that have not been upgraded, despite the fact that the front of the building has taken advantage of the storefront improvement program. So I'm assuming that we're just talking about those faces of buildings, the sides of the buildings that are fully visible, such as the end of a block.
Perhaps Mr. Morrissey can answer that question.
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Sperling. So you are correct. The current definition of frontage are those sides of the building which face the street front. So in the case of a corner unit, both sides that face the streets would be eligible. There is some discretion within the current language within the procedures that would allow a higher rise of an adjacent building to be considered to be depending on the visibility from the street front.
Okay.
But with my understanding of what Councillor Lennox has proposed today, that would not change. That would still be eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the question that I have, and I'm going to direct it to you, Mr. Morrissey. So when you went out to do the last reiteration of this policy, what type of public engagement did you have with the businesses? And I guess the nonprofits, since it was Twice But Nice that that spoke to this.
Through to your worship. So the storefront improvement program, specifically the engagement for that one was done in 2016, prior to the policy coming forward to council. And it was largely based on the existing guidelines that were in existence prior to my arrival in 2014. Subsequent engagement with businesses specific to storefront improvement have been with those users who have accessed that program or have applied to look at how we can improve that program and how it met their needs or did not meet their needs. So in terms of consultation with businesses recently, that has specifically centered around the newer programs that we've rolled out, export development, e-commerce, those types of consultations. We've not really done a broad business consultation specific to storefront improvement in the last few years.
Okay, so that would probably be a good comment that, you know, if direction's given, it would probably be really good to go out and have a good engagement with the stores. I guess the other question that I would have, and I don't know if there's anybody sitting on this entire panel that would go back and be able to talk about the Dr. Abby Freeman when he talked about moving storefronts closer to the front and being able to have people access, you know, greater access through the backs and the alleys and things like that. So, you know, I would suggest, oh, Councillor Sperling, you're probably aware of the Dr. Abby Freeman. So that probably, yeah. That would probably be a good document to go back and review if this gets approved tonight, because it really did talk about, you know, the need for people to be able to access through alleys and things like that. So that may actually even complement, you know, the storefront improvements. So I'll just throw that out there, and that's just a little bit of institutional knowledge that I know a couple of us have. So. So we're going through discussion and debate. A second here. So Councillor Lennox, did you want to weigh in at this point in time on anything, or wait till? I'm
No,
just going through rotation.
Yeah, I'll let it go around here again. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon.
I will support this motion. I don't think it's a bad idea to take a look back and look at it and see if there's anything better that we can do to, especially to help support the downtown. So there's no harm in taking a look at it and see what can be done, bringing back options. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
I'll support the motion as well. The two wonderful ladies earlier this evening gave a great example of exactly why this particular program should be revisited. If there's other positive changes that could be made during that revision or revisit, absolutely, why not? But it does appear to be lacking, and we should address that. So for sure, I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye.
I support the motion as well. I really enjoyed the presentation by the ladies that came earlier today. So it shows that there's room for, you know, some flexibility within our storefront program, and I think that's what this notice of motion is doing, to, you know, help us revisit it and see how we can help more people, essentially. So yeah, I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. It looks like we've gone through everybody now. So I will go to Councillor Lennox to close on your motion.
Thank you. Yeah, just again, appreciation to Ms. Reel and Ms. Cook for coming forward. And it was through visiting businesses downtown that this actually came to my attention. And so I agree with the consultation piece. I think some of the businesses downtown have some good ideas and have some experiences to share, and it would be good to touch base with them to see how else we can possibly help them out, and also drive forward the initiatives and the vision that we have for downtown.
Sorry, thank you. All right, so we're just going to use our hands because I don't think our iPads are working. So those in favor, please raise your hands. That's carried unanimously, Jennifer. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go on to the next notice of motion. You can read it in.
I move that council direct administration to include in the 2022 budget deliberations a budget plan request for enhanced specialized transit services for seniors that includes service level options and costs.
Okay, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to talk to quite a few seniors, and it was identified as a gap in service now that Miss Daisy isn't around. And I'll just read out some information that a couple of people forwarded to me. So the fare to Misericordia Hospital one way is $85, so $170 there and back. To the U of A, it's $80 one way, and to the Royal Alex, it's $65 one way. HR Limousine no longer operates out of Fort Saskatchewan and therefore no longer offers their special rate. And she goes on to say fares to different doctors' offices is dependent on location, but it would be in the ballpark of the closest hospital. Taking the ET bus from or the Edmonton Transit bus from Park and Ride to Clairview is unrealistic, as the last bus to leave Fort is about 7:30 a.m. and the first bus returning from Clairview is about 1:30. And that it's unrealistic to expect seniors needing medical appointments and frail in health to make the 7:30 a.m. bus time. Taxis are way too expensive for most seniors, and dread of an appointment in Edmonton is very stressful. And would ask that council consider something similar again to Miss Daisy arrangement. So those are the comments that I received.
Okay, thank you. So we'll open this up for discussion and debate. Councillor Macon, you're first in rotation.
So the Special Transportation Service Society, operating now by the Lions Club, you know, when you brought this forward, I thought it was going to be outside of medical appointments, Councillor Lennox, but the things that you refer to lead me to believe that this is for medical appointments and such. And so seniors who qualify can use the special services. Well, I'm sorry, the Lions Club renamed it, so I am not totally sure what it's called now. But if they qualify, they can use that service. So I guess I would wonder, like, that was what we, as a city, as a municipality, that's what we utilized to provide this service at a subsidized rate for seniors. And now we've had the Lions Club take that over for us. So I'm just wondering, what is the difference between what you are asking for and what the Special Transportation Service Society does?
You can go ahead and answer.
So it's my understanding that the Special Transportation Services does not apply to any senior that does not have a disability that requires that bus. And so for all the seniors that don't require the special services of the special transportation, and that is with the wheelchair access, or that they do not have access to those services. Does that answer your question? And if there's somebody from administration that can provide some clarification around that, that would be great.
Yeah, I would ask for clarification.
Thank you. Tammy Lautner's on there.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Through Your Worship to Councillor Macon, the STSS service does provide services for seniors that have mobility issues. So they would need to be using a wheelchair, a scooter, or a walker. So they're not the traditional being able to go into just a vehicle very simply, like with driving Miss Daisy. But the service is there provided for seniors for medical appointments throughout the week.
And Tammy, one more question then while I have you here is driving Miss Daisy, they're completely not operating, or are they just not taking rides to Edmonton? Do you know what the status of them is?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Macon, they are operational. They're providing out-of-town medical appointments Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays into Edmonton, Sherwood Park, Lamont, and St. Albert.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
I'll support the motion because I don't think the report would necessarily be difficult to write. And I stand to be corrected, Mr. Fleming. Please weigh in if I'm over speaking here. And I do think that the subject warrants, at a minimum, some counsel and perhaps a better public understanding of what is actually available in the community. I'm getting a sense that there's some confusion on council, and I will admit that I don't know what either of those services do and what day they operate. So I'll support the report in the sense that it will get us at least an inventory of the services that we currently offer, and perhaps point to a couple of areas of weakness and maybe have a couple suggestions for those on cost-efficient ways to handle or deal with the weaknesses, and perhaps not, but at least an inventory of the existing services and what's available would be appreciated. So I'll support it based on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Avatoye.
So question for Mr. Fleming. So we're currently in September. Budget is in November. Do you have the capacity to take this on for budgets?
Yeah, through your worship, what I always tell council is I can deliver on any timeline. It just the amount of sophistication that might go into it would change depending on how much time we're given. In this case, it would probably be something along the lines of what Councillor Kelly described, where we would provide an inventory of what's there, and if we're able to find one or two options, and the additional costs associated with those, it may be as simple as finding out what re-implementing the Driving Miss Daisy subsidy would be. And my understanding as well is that the STSS Association is looking at taking this kind of thing on, seniors transportation to medical appointments in Edmonton. So I don't believe they've committed to anything, but my understanding is they've expressed an interest in taking it on, and so they may have an additional budget request if they do take that on, so that in the time between now and budget, we may be able to look at those things in the simplest sense.
Right. Okay. I support the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris.
Number of questions. First, Driving Miss Daisy still operates, correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, that's correct.
How much does it cost to take a trip into Edmonton for a medical appointment under the current guise with no subsidy? How much would a senior have to pay to take that ride?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, for Driving Miss Daisy service, it's $50 one way.
And that's substantially less than what Councillor Lennox quoted based on her sources, correct?
Correct.
Good. And a taxi would probably cost you somewhere upwards of 60 or 70 bucks if you're taking a taxi.
Perhaps. I'm not too sure about the taxi rates, the private taxi rates.
Okay, so let's say it's about 50 bucks. How much was the subsidy in the past?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, for Driving Miss Daisy, it was $25 into Edmonton one way.
So a senior without a mobility issue but just wanted to get into town, into Edmonton, would pay 25 bucks. Now they're paying 50.
Correct.
Okay. And the Special Transportation Society takes people with mobility challenges. And how much does it cost those riders?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, that is $25 one way into Edmonton.
But again, it's a limitation based on mobility challenges. And they're contemplating the potential of providing a kind of a Driving Miss Daisy service with the two handy vans that they have. Is that kind of what Councillor Mayor Ketchard just said?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, that I'm not entirely sure of all the details. I'd have to follow up with the Lions Club to find out more about that.
Yeah. you know, it looks like it's an evolving thing and it's something that's modified. And I support what Councillor Lennox is attempting to do. I think it makes sense to look at it so that we can ensure that we do have a cost-effective and accessible service for people that can make use of it. So if this report would achieve that, and I guess the question of Councillor Lennox, is that kind of what your objective is, Councillor Lennox? Okay, well, if that's the case, then I can support that. And if it isn't a significant impact on administration to produce that report within the timelines that have been identified, then I'd support the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sperling.
So I'll support the motion as well. I think obviously there is a gap right now. There's some feedback that some of the seniors aren't being served in terms of the needs that they have for their medical appointments. So STSS has indicated that they may have some capacity to help with this, and I know they, just in a brief conversation, they would certainly be willing to discuss it with the city. So that may be a solution. Anyways, I will support the motion.
Okay, thank you. I'll support the motion as well. When I first heard the motion, I thought it was something different when it was first presented. But the way it's written, it just talks about the enhanced specialized transit services. So I had reached out to some Lions Club members, and they were saying right now that their vehicles are underutilized. They actually got 2 new ones, and there was an indication that at this point in time they are being underutilized and that they would have availability to probably do something. So, you know, knowing that, it probably would have been nice if they had contacted the city or gone through our liaison. Like, I don't think we have a council member that sits on there anymore. At least I don't recall that we do, but you know, if we have a city liaison, it would have been nice if they had have indicated this to our administration so that, you know, this could have been considered, because that way plans can start getting made. You know, it's always sad that, you know, these have to come in through the side door like this. But, you know, when speaking to the person, they said, you know what, we've got 2 new buses, and or 2 new 2 new buses, I guess they are, and they're wrapping them right now, and they would be so excited to be able to do more trips for people. So I think that they've already got these plans in the works. So you know, I look forward to hopefully having administration sit down and talk to the Lions Club and see what their potential is, and you know, so that we're not going down a different path, and see what we can get, you know, that's going to work for our community. Okay, thank you. Is there anything else before I go to Councillor Lennox on close? Okay, not seeing any. You can close on your motion.
Okay, thank you. So at minimum, I think there's a perception from the seniors' perspective that there isn't anything available. And so to Councillor Kelly's point and Councillor Harris, to do the work and to figure out what is offered and what potential gaps are there. But I also view it, and I don't think that it's just for medical purposes, because I do view it as contributing to the isolation piece. I think that seniors are feeling right now as a result of the pandemic. And also that then ties into the whole mental health piece. And if they have the ability to be a little bit more mobile and get out and about, I think it would serve them well as well. So it's just an opportunity to move this whole thing forward. So thank you.
Thank you. The motion is closed. We're just going to do show of hands again. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any new notice of motions? Not seeing any. We just have the last agenda item, which is to cancel September 21st and September 28th regular council meeting. Ms. Moulter, I believe you're presenting.
Your Worship and members of council, this item is being presented tonight to determine whether there is support for cancellation of the September 21st Committee of the Whole and September 28th regular council meetings due to the close proximity to the upcoming municipal election in October.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to see if there's any questions of council. Councillor Lennox?
And no, I did read it in the report, but if maybe administration could just speak to it publicly, that there is no pressing matters in regards to needing. We're not putting anything off. We're not in voting in favor of this motion. We wouldn't be neglecting the business of the city in any way, would we?
Your worship, to Councillor Lennox, that is correct. At this point, there isn't anything, as you say, pressing for council to discuss and deliberate. Should there be something that does come up prior to the October 18th election, then a special meeting can be requested.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any additional ones. Councillor Harris, would you like to put the motion on?
I would move that council cancel the September 21st, 2021 Committee of the Whole and the September 28th, 2021 regular council meetings.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to look for a show of hands. Is there any discussion and debate? Not seeing any. I will close the motion. Please cast your vote by raising your hands. Those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to the any points of interest? Not seeing any councillor inquiries? Okay, and before I adjourn, I'm just going to take a moment because this is technically then our last council meeting. I would like to give everybody an opportunity, and we can keep it short, just to say a final comment about what the 4 years has been. And before I go to Councillor Sperling, this you have indicated that you're not running again. Post-election, there will be something that will be more of a formal farewell for you. And hopefully by that time, we might be able to do it in person. But I really thank you for your service over the last number of years. Although we didn't always see eye to eye on things, that's good. But you know what? At the end of the day, we made some heck of a good decisions for this community to move it forward. So I just want to thank you before you sign off for the last meeting. And with that, I'm going to give you the floor to start and just have a few final comments. You have to unmute. You have to unmute.
Maybe I'll go last. How about that?
Sure, I think that's your privilege. Councillor Lennox, if you'd like to have a couple words.
Does that mean that you're not going to speak in the rotation?
Yeah, I'm good. So go ahead.
A little unexpected. So, I mean, this could possibly very much be my last meeting as well. So just wanted to extend my gratitude to all of my colleagues. It's been a interesting 4 years. Learned a lot and grateful for the experience and to get to know a few pretty amazing members of this community. So I know whatever everybody else chooses to do as they move forward in their next journey, that you will do it as well as you did this one. So thank you for everything, and everybody who's running again, good luck in the upcoming election.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon, a couple words.
Oh, I'm no good on the spot. I have just really enjoyed the last 4 years. I think it was what I expected and completely what I wasn't expecting at the same time. And I really enjoyed my time on council. And it sounds like all the incumbents who are going to have got their paperwork in. So I'm excited to hit the campaign trail with all of you. And I really look forward to seeing some familiar faces in October should I get the privilege of being elected again. So, and thank you, Councillor Sperling, for your time on council. And I certainly will miss you if I'm here next term.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
This is unexpected, Gail. What could I say? I'd like to say it was a great fun for the last 4 years, but I will stress that most of it was fun and some of it was not. There was a half hour tonight that I didn't find much fun, and I'll be completely honest. I wish Councillor Sperling nothing but the best. I think he's headed toward full-time retirement. I don't know. I suspect he is, and I wish him nothing but, him and his spouse Marianne, absolutely nothing but the best in the coming years. I would like to thank and express my appreciation for administration and their, what I would call supreme patience on a lot of council meeting days. I'm sure we tried them a lot and tried them hard, and they wrote it out each and every time in stellar fashion. I was pleased also, and I just looked this afternoon late to see that other than Councillor Sperling, the rest of us have held our name up for office of one form or another. That's great. That shows we had, by and large, a positive experience. Councillor Lennox, you're not alone. Each and every one of us, this could easily be our last time on council. So we have to learn how to breathe. We'll wish all of you well, and we'll see what happens in about a month. Take care.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye.
I really wish we did have a heads up so we can prepare a speech. But I just wanted to say, it's been an amazing 4 years. I'm incredibly proud of this council. I know that we didn't always agree on a lot of things, but we all were passionate about moving this community forward. And I think that's what we did in the last 4 years. And when I say I'm incredibly proud of this council, I actually mean it. I'm actually really proud of this council. So thank you for your dedication for the last 4 years. And don't worry, I'm not crying. I'm just trying to pick my words. And I'd like to really say a huge thank you to administration, because you guys made council look good. Thank you for all of your hard work, for all of your dedication and commitment to your jobs. You know, I know this council really pushed you guys, and you guys, you know, always, you know, stood tall, you know, in doing your job. So thank you. And just, you know, all the best to everyone that's running again. I really am hopeful that I see everyone here, and obviously for myself as well. And Councillor Sperling, as everyone has said, we're going to really miss you. Wishing you all the best and hope to see you around. And what else can I say? I'm just really, I mean, it's really our last day. I wish we could just get a group hug, but hey, we're in virtual space, so. But really, I'm just really inspired by all of you, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for, you know, working together in the last 4 years, and I really am grateful. And all the best to all of you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris.
Municipal government has been my vocation for the last 40 years. And these last 4 have been a whole different kettle of fish, as opposed to sitting on the side of the table that administration sits on, which I did for many years, and then advised other municipalities in a context as a business advisor for a number of years. I can honestly say that I've worked with hundreds of elected officials over that period of time, both as a as a servant, an employee sort of thing, and now as a decision policymaker. And I can look at each one of you as council colleagues and say that you've all individually grown so much further than what I might have anticipated when we first came together. We have been a good team. In the context, we've made the right decisions in the right way at the right time. And that is a testimony to a group that didn't always agree on everything all the time. We didn't, and we never should, but we agreed on enough of the positive things that really counted. And I think that there was really no major acrimony in our community or on our council for the benefit of our community going forward. So to that, my hat's off to each one of you. And Ed, you know, you've had 8 years of this fun and you're going on to other things. And I think that that's, you know, that's really good for you. I hope you and Marianne enjoy that. You're not going to have the frustration of having to do another campaign, which good for you. And Gail, you know, you've been a good chair of our meetings. You know, you've taken it on the chin sometimes, but that's the nature of the position that a mayor has to fit into. You know, you have to be there, you have to have big shoulders and you have to take it. And so, you know, kudos to you for helping us wind through. We made a bunch of modifications to our meeting processes and procedures, much to the, you know, the behest of Councillor Kelly and Councillor Lennox and Councillor Abatoye. You know, we ultimately modified those processes, which ultimately I think worked. And that was good. I didn't agree with it all, but it worked. And our administration, as you've all said, have had a lot of patience. Being the city manager is the loneliest job in municipal government. And so, Troy, to you, you've helped get us individually to where we had to go and collectively to where we had to go. And so it has been my honor to work with all of you. Again, you made me mad a lot of times. I'm sure I made you mad, and I apologize for all that. But you know what? Going forward, whatever we end up doing, wherever we end up, it has been a very enjoyable experience for me. And thank you very much, and all the best.
Great, thank you. So just before I go to Councillor Sperling, I can see everybody's actually fairly emotional here tonight and almost on the verge of tears. So I think it just goes to prove this job gets in your blood, it gets in your heart, it gets in your soul. And I think all the words that were said here tonight are very thoughtful and very thought-provoking. You know, so I just want to thank everybody for their service over the last 4 years. And with that, I'm going to let Councillor Sperling take us home.
You know what?
Take your time. I wish we could be there to give you a hug and show you our support. Just take your time for a moment, Councillor Sperling.
Do you know what? I'll post it publicly. I'll never get it through here. So just a thank you to everyone.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor Sperling. Thank you. All right. With that, we'll put our hands together and I will say this meeting is officially adjourned. Have a good campaign. Have an excellent retirement, Councillor Sperling, and I look forward to seeing you around. Take care. Good night.